Chapter 1. Birth of Evil. The full moon was high in the sky, as its pale bluish light glowed in the darkness of the night. At such an ungodly hour, most people would be asleep. However, at a derelict-looking shrine, a group of people were wide awake. If anyone were in the area, they would hear the screams of a woman who was in more than a little pain. And if you were to listen closely, you would be able to hear the sound of several other people chanting in a tongue that was highly uncommon to the people of the land. Inside the shrine was a group of people dressed in pitch-black robes. Each one of them also wore a circular pendant with an inverted triangle and wielded a tri-bladed scythe. In front of each figure was either a man or a woman, all of whom were bound, gagged, and present against their will. They were all dressed in regal-looking kimonos and looked particularly well-to-do. In the center of this gathering was a nude woman laying on top of a small bed. Like the robed figures surrounding her, this woman wore the same pendant they wore, a circle with an inverted triangle inside. She had long jet black hair and a beautiful face. Well, it would be beautiful if said woman wasn't in so much pain. The reason for her pain had to do with the fact that this woman was in the middle of childbirth. The life that she had been carrying for the past 9 months was ready to leave the womb. Along with the woman was another cloaked figure to tend to the needs of the soon-to-be mother and the soon-to-be-born child. Jashin-sama, we are gathered here on this night so that we may welcome the newest member of your loyal followers into this world. We, your loyal servants, humbly ask that you bestow upon this child with your most sacred of blessings. I have foreseen great things in this child's future, my lord, and I can personally assure you that she will become one, if not the most powerful priestesses to ever be produced from our religion. In exchange for your generosity, Jashin-sama, we offer you the blood of this small gathering of heathen nobility. Shall this not be enough? I will gladly offer my own blood as well, not only to complete this exchange, but also as a sign of forgiveness, my lord. The attending figure spoke in a low female voice. The bound people looked at the figure as if she were insane. That was when the flames on some of the candles around the bed suddenly rose up. The flames merged together above the attendant and the expecting mother and formed a demonic face made of fire. The attendant and the cloaked figures all bowed down in respect. The pain that the expecting mother felt was temporarily forgotten. Unable to bow like the others, she bowed her head to show her respect. Welcome, Jashin-sama. You honor us with your presence, the attendant said with a tone of respect. You may dispense with the pleasantries, Kanaki. The flaming head of Jashin said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. He then looked at the ones who were bound and gagged. The ones you intend to offer me may be heathens, Kanaki. However, they are of noble lineage and blood such as theirs is quite a commodity. Jashin said, I take it you are pleased with our offering, my lord? The attendant, Kanaki, replied, yes. Jashin said as he looked over to the woman on the bed. As for your request, I too have seen into the future of the child that is about to be born. And like you, I as well have seen great things in the future of the daughter of your daughter. She will indeed become one of the greatest high priestesses to come along in some time. Jashin's head turned to look back at the sacrificial ones. This sacrifice seems more than satisfactory. As such, I shall bestow the child with the blessings that I only reserve for a very select few. Immortality and blood sorcery. Jashin-sama, I thank you. Kanaki said as she bowed again. You shall not regret this. See to it that I do not. Jashin said. Commence with the ritual of the high priestess. At once, my lord. Kanaki said as the flaming head of her master vanished. She then looked to her daughter. Kansumi, push. The woman, Kansumi, complied and was rewarded with a fresh surge of pain. The chanting from the others got louder, and she replied with an even louder scream of pain. Kanaki looked to the other cloaked figures and raised her arms. At this, the other figures raised their scythes in unison, as if preparing to swing them. The bound captives could only look on in horror as they did not know which was more horrifying, the macabre birth taking place before them or the fact that they were about to die. After another scream from the soon-to-be mother, Kanaki quickly threw down her arms. With that, the other figures swung their scythes downward, hitting each of their respective victims in their necks. While the cloaked figures didn't decapitate their victims, they did manage to sever each of their victims' carotid arteries. They would bleed out in seconds. The gurgling sounds they made as they died mixed in with the chanting from their killers and the pained screams from Kansumi. Kanaki then pulled off the hood of her cloak to reveal that she was an older woman with graying hair. She also bore a faint resemblance to Kansumi. She looked at the blood that was oozing out of the dead captives. Begin the final spells, Kanaki said in a commanding tone. The others quickly stuck their respective scythes into the ground, clapped their hands together, and started to chant loudly. Kanaki then turned back to her daughter. Kansumi, it is now time. Push. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one giving birth here, you sadistic bitch. Kansumi screamed. When this is over, so are you, you fucking old bat. Kanaki just rolled her eyes slightly. As if Kansumi wasn't charming enough when she wasn't pregnant. Kansumi pushed harder, screaming and cursing the whole time. The cloaked figures continued their chanting. After several more pushes, screams, and curses, Kansumi felt the mass that she had been carrying for the past 9 months leave her body. The chanting from the cloaked figures ceased and Kansumi's screaming was replaced with gasping breaths of relief. A few seconds later, a new sound could be heard in the shrine. the sound of a newborn baby. Fucking shit, that hurt like hell. Kansumi sighed in relief as one of the cloaked figures covered the new mother with a black sheet. Kanaki was there to catch her new granddaughter the instant she left Kansumi's body. After severing and securing the umbilical cord on the child, Kanaki gently carried her granddaughter over to the altar in the back of the room. After gently laying the baby down, Kanaki signaled for one of the others. Another figure was at Kanaki's side with a small golden goblet that was filled with viscous red blood. Kanaki dipped a finger in the blood and drew a circle with an inverted triangle on the newborn's chest, just below her collarbone. Behold, Jashin-sama. I give you Kin-Tsuchi, daughter of my daughter, Kansumi-Tsuchi and granddaughter to me, Kanaki-T. Kanaki proudly proclaimed. The flames of the candles around the altar rose and once again, the flaming head of Jashin, the demon god of blood and chaos appeared before his followers. Jashin looked down at the newest addition to his small but growing cult. A proud, almost father-like smirk formed on the demon god's flaming visage. The baby just looked up at the head with wide, curious eyes. She raised one of her little arms as if reaching up to touch him. Jashin opened his monstrous mouth and began to inhale. The spilled blood on the floor began to rise up off the floor and was sucked into Jashin's mouth. Once the demon consumed all the blood, he looked back down at baby Kin. His flaming eyes changed from fire orange to pitch black. Rays of black and red chakra shot out of Jashin's eyes and covered the baby. After a few moments, the dark chakra began to flow into the symbol that was drawn on Kin's chest. The sacrifice has been accepted, and the ritual has been completed. I give you my newest and greatest high priestess, Kin-Tsuchi, daughter of Kansumi and granddaughter of Kanaki. Everyone present bowed before their master and their new high priestess. Kansumi, still unable to bow like the others, lowered her head to show her respect. Kanaki. Jashin spoke again, getting the woman's attention. Since you have foreseen Kin's future, then you have also seen that young Kin will not be the only one to bring greatness to our cause. Am I correct? Yes, my lord. Kanaki replied. The other one, the one who will become the living prison for the greatest of 9 beasts, has yet to be born. He will grow up among the heathens and non-believers who cower among the leaves and believe themselves to be superior to all. I cannot say how or when, but he will eventually come to embrace our ways, and along with young Kin, they will both deliver death and chaos in your name, Jashin-sama. I swear to it, see that it will be done. Like all visions, nothing is certain. So make sure that this vision comes to pass. Jashin said before vanishing yet again. Kanaki carefully wrapped her granddaughter in a black blanket and carried her back to Kansumi. Kansumi was recovering rather nicely and gently cradled her new daughter as her mother handed Kin to her. By this time, baby Kin yawned and was succumbing to sleep. Away with all of you. Your work in this matter is complete. Kanaki commanded. The other Jashinists bowed and left the room. You will make all of us and Jashin-sama very proud, my sweet little Kin-chan. Kansumi said as her daughter grabbed her pendant. A moment later, both Kin and Kansumi fell asleep. Kanaki smiled at the scene before her. And who says Jashinists can't be gentle? The old woman thought as she left the room as well, leaving the new mother and daughter to rest. Chapter 2. The First Encounter. Chunin Exam Classroom. 13 years later. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm going to beat each and every single one of you. That was the loud proclamation coming from the orange-clad young man after hearing how tough the Chunin exams would be. Many of the gathered shinobi in the room were thoroughly insulted and couldn't wait to get a piece of the blonde idiot. Naruto's own teammates, Sasuke and Sakura, were among this group. Most of the rest simply rolled their eyes and figured that the knucklehead idiot wasn't worth the effort and thought that he would be among the first to go. However, a pair of jet black eyes was watching the young blonde not with annoyance or ignorance, but rather with interest. The owner of the dark eyes had long raven black hair that reached down to the back of her knees and was tied at the bottom with a dark gray ribbon. She wore a black spaghetti top that seemed to enhance her already impressive figure and bust, a black leather short skirt over a pair of black skin-tight shorts, black kunoichi sandals, fingerless gloves, and a black sleeveless trench coat. Around her neck was a black cord attached to pendant, which was a circle around an inverted triangle. Tied to her forehead was her headband, which had the kanji for darkness on the metal plate. Her name was Kin-Tsuchi, genin of Yamagakure, and high priestess of Jashin. What a moron. A feral-looking young man beside Kin growled. He was a short and somewhat scrawny-looking kid with messy reddish-brown hair that looked like it hadn't met a comb in the time its owner was alive. He was dressed in torn-looking clothing that gave one the impression that he had seen his fair share of battle. Tied to his left arm was a Yamagakure headband. He was one of Kin's teammates, Shinku Yurufu. Think a feral-looking version of Goku from Sayuki. I don't know Shinku. I think he's kind of funny, another girl said. She had short greenish-black hair that seemed to stand up on end, as if she had been exposed to a lot of static electricity. She was dressed in a black and dark green striped long-sleeve shirt with the sleeves reaching down to her knees. She also wore a black and gray shirt over the long-sleeve shirt, baggy black pants, and black sandals. Tied to her neck was her headband. Her name was Midoriko Reijiki, Kin's other teammate. Think Satsuki Yatoji from X/1999, only happier. The raven-haired girl said nothing as she continued to watch Naruto. The loud pink-haired girl smacked him in the back of the head and yelled at him. Her voice reminded Kin of nails on a chalkboard. It was so bad that Shinka covered his ears and winced in pain. Kin also noticed another feral-looking kid, and the small puppy on his head reacted in a similar manner. I just hope that girl never decides to become a singer. Midoriko quipped, I'd slaughter her right here and now, but I think even Jashin-sama would find her blood disgusting. Kin mentally growled to herself as she had to resist the strong urge to unseal her tri-scythe and decapitate the pink-haired bitch, if only just to shut her up. A moment later, a trio of sound ninja, which was comprised of a spiky-haired young man, another young man whose face was covered in bandages, save for one of his eyes, and a young black-haired girl armed with a portable kodo, moved towards the front of the room to attack the silver-haired young man who was chatting with Naruto and the other Konoha Genin earlier. Immediately after the sound ninja attacked, a large scarred man and a group of exam proctors entered the room. The first exam goes like it does in the anime and the manga. So let's move along. Forest of Death. The next day, all of the participants that passed the first part of the exam were gathered outside the Forest of Death. The purple-haired proctor, Anko Mitarashi, was explaining the objective of the second part of the exam, which was to get 2 scrolls and get to the tower in the middle of the forest within 5 days. But Kin had an objective of her own, and what she was working towards was far grander than merely being promoted to Chunin. Temple of Jashin near Yamagakure, 1 month ago. Do you know what to do, Kin-chan? Kinsumi asked her daughter. Yes, mother. Kin replied as she sharpened her tri-scythe. Find the one who holds the 9-tailed fox and convince him to join our cause. Sounds like a simple game of seduce and destroy. Kin may have been a high priestess, but she was also known among the other Jashinists as the Black Widow, as she would seduce some of the more idiotic hormone-driven boys of the local towns near Yamagakure and bring them to a secluded area where Kin would brutally slaughter them and offer their blood to Jashin. She would also do the same to some of the girls as well. Don't be so sure, Kin, Kanaki said to her granddaughter. From what our spies in Konoha have been telling me, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, Naruto Uzumaki, is a rather simple boy who has been coddled by that old fool of a Hokage, Sarutobi. As a result, he has developed a rather disgusting sense of morality and loyalty to Konoha. Don't think that seduction alone will sway him to our cause. So basically what you're telling me is that he's a typical good boy who has all kinds of high hopes and dreams and knows next to dick about women. Is that about right, grandmother? Kin asked. More or less. Kanaki replied, shrugging her shoulders. Kin just grinned evilly as she inspected her tri-scythe. And here I thought this was going to boring. The raven-haired girl said with a laugh. Boys like that are my favorite kind to seduce. The looks on their faces just before I tear them to pieces is nothing short of priceless. Bear in mind, Kin, you're supposed to recruit the kid, not kill him. Kinsumi sighed. And if your grandmother is correct, if this boy is truly as hopeless as she says he is and your feminine charms don't work, use the kiss on him. It worked for your father, and it'll work on the Jinchuriki, right? Kin nodded. Either way, by the time I'm done with him, Naruto Uzumaki will be eating out of my hand. That's the spirit, my dear. Kanaki said. By the way, Mom, what had happened to Daddy? Kin asked, legitimately curious. Kinsumi just sighed. Well, Kin-chan, your father made some rather poor choices right after you were conceived. Namely, he was fucking some heathen cunt behind my back. Long story made short, he broke my heart. So I broke his neck and gutted that rancid bitch he was with. Oh, Kin said. Well, that's what happens when you mess around with a Jashinist woman present. Getting him alone in the woods shouldn't be too hard, especially without any of these nosy proctors around. Kin thought to herself as she and her team turned in their release forms and got an earth scroll. But like mother and grandmother said, the hard part may be getting him to see things my way. After getting the scroll, Kin and her team waited in front of one of the gates leading into the forest. When the second part of the exam started and the gate opened, the team from Yamagakure zoomed in. After running for a few minutes, Kin called for a stop and stuck a kunai in the ground. We'll meet back here in 2 hours. Shinku, Midoriko, you two try and track down a heaven scroll. What about you, Kin-chan? Midoriko asked. I've got a little job to take care of while we're here. Religious work, you could say. Kin replied. Shinku and Midoriko didn't push the issue further. They both knew that when it came to Kin and her particular religion, they were a lot better off not knowing the specifics. Ignorance was bliss after all. Got it. Shinku replied as he sniffed the air. There's a group of Amigakure ninjas about 50 yards to the west of us. You two know what to do, now go. Kin ordered. With that, Shinku and Midoriko took off towards their prey, while the high priestess took off in another direction in search of her own prey. In another part of the forest, Naruto was picking himself off the ground after he had been separated from his team courtesy of a blast of wind. Sakura? Sasuke? Where are you two? Naruto asked. A quick look around told the blonde Jinchuriki that he was alone, but he did get an answer to his question, in the form of a hiss. It was then that Naruto noticed that one of the trees was moving, and he was in a darker shadow, like something was right above him. The orange-clad young man looked up to see that hovering 10 feet above him was a giant snake's head. Oh crap, Naruto said, just as he jumped away from the large reptile, just as it was about to strike. Unknown to Naruto, Kin was watching from the shadows. The high priestess regarded the scene before her as something like a large-scale version of watching a snake eat a mouse. Only Naruto was the mouse. She thought about going down to assist the Jinchuriki, but decided against it. The spies that the cult planted in Konoha had stated that Naruto may have been an unorthodox and unpredictable individual, but it was the very unpredictability that made up one of the boy's strength. For now, I'll wait and see how this pans out. Besides, this may turn out to be entertaining. The raven-haired Jashinist thought with a smirk. Turns out that Kin was wrong as not a minute later, the giant snake swallowed Naruto whole. Well, that was anticlimactic. Kin, though, feeling somewhat disappointed. Apparently, her grandmother overestimated the orange-clad idiot. But as soon as the young high priestess finished that train of thought, she heard a muffled voice from inside the snake. It sounded like shadow clone jutsu. A moment later, the snake started expanding like a balloon. What the fuck? Kin thought. Judging from the surprised look on the snake face, it probably had the same thought. Just before it exploded, sending internal organs and other bits of gore flying all over the place. Kin quickly ducked behind the tree she was standing beside to avoid a piece of gore. A moment later, the raven-haired Jashinist looked back to the area where the large reptile met its sudden end. Among what was left of the snake were dozens of Naruto clones who were trying to get bits of gore off them. They all sounded annoyed instead of grossed out. Suddenly, Kin's perception of the young man changed. Unpredictable indeed, Kin thought as a small smile graced her pretty face. Maybe this knucklehead will be worth my time after all. Meanwhile, Naruto decided to dispel his clones and would worry about the rest of the slime and gore that was still on him later. Maybe there's a river or something around here. The blonde Jinchuriki thought to himself, well, that's certainly an interesting way to make a new pair of snakeskin shoes. A female voice could be heard from somewhere nearby. The voice sounded impressed, and the sound of clapping could be heard as well. Naruto turned to his right to see a strikingly beautiful girl that was around his age walk into the clearing. As she walked, she was applauding. Under normal circumstances, Naruto wouldn't mind being praised for an accomplishment. But then he noticed the girl's headband. The darkness kanji told him that this girl was from the village hidden in the darkness. And since this part of the exam was basically one big free-for-all, Naruto assumed that the girl was an enemy, so he got into a battle-ready stance. This seemed to amuse the girl. How cute, she said as if witnessing the most adorable sight imaginable. Relax, kid. I'm not here for a fight. Yeah, right. Forgive me if I don't believe you, Naruto said, ready to react if the girl so much as flinched. Fair enough, but let me make one thing clear, the girl said, just before vanishing in a blur. Before Naruto's brain registered that the girl was gone, he suddenly felt something very sharp press against the right side of his neck, right where his carotid artery was. The blonde carefully looked to see not one, but 3 blood-red scythe blades on the side of his neck. If I wanted you dead, you wouldn't even see the killing blow coming, the girl said from behind Naruto on his left. Any and all traces of humor and amusement in the girl's voice were gone, replaced by a cold malice that was eerily similar to the tones of Busa Momochi used when he snuck up on him and his team during their first real mission. But like I said, the girl continued, I'm not here for a fight. I just want to talk. So why don't you and I have a conversation? Knowing that he was completely at this girl's mercy, Naruto simply replied, fine. The one saving grace to this was the fact that his teammates weren't around to see this. Sasuke would probably act like the stuck-up ass he was, and Sakura would just rub it in that once again the Uchiha was better than him. Good. You're more intelligent than most people say you are, Naruto Uzumaki, the girl said as she took the tri-scythe away from Naruto's neck. She then walked in front of the blonde with a small smile on her face. How do you know who I am? Naruto asked, feeling uncomfortable. He never heard of the village hidden in the darkness before the exam. So how did a girl from that village know about him? If anything, the girl's smile widened. Oh, I know quite a bit about you, Naruto. Your dreams of wanting to become Hokage, wanting to earn everyone's respect, your silly little rivalry with the emo Uchiha, your pathetic crush on that pink-haired bitch, and lest we forget, you know who's sealed inside you. The girl emphasized that last part by pointing at Naruto's stomach. She knows about the fox? Naruto fearfully thought. Yes, I know of your multi-tailed friend, the girl said as if reading his thoughts. Rather unusual for someone to have one of the most powerful demons in history sealed inside them. But then again, I'm rather far from normal myself. Who are you? Naruto asked, not liking the way this little talk was going. My name is Kintsuchi, and as you can probably tell from the headband, I'm from Yamagakure, she answered as she moved closer. Okay, Kin, since you seem to know a lot about me, what do you want? Naruto asked as she slowly backed away, feeling a strange combination of fear and lust for some odd reason. He could see that some of her teeth, specifically her canines, were slightly longer and sharper than the rest of her pearly whites. The blonde could also see the raven-haired girl run her tongue behind her teeth in a way that seemed sensual. Well, let me ask you something. You want to be Hokage, and you want people to respect and like you, even though they treated you lower than trash covered with shit and piss. Yet, you continue to risk your neck for those ungrateful heathens. Why is that? Kin asked. Well, that's easy, Naruto replied. It's because I have people that are precious to me, and I'll do everything in my power to protect them. Oh, really? And how much closer are you fulfilling that particular goal? Kin asked. Well, not a lot, but the hesitation in Naruto's last answer told Kin that she was close to hooking him, so she continued. When the villagers constantly hated you and degraded you for something you had no control over, how many of your precious people or your friends came forth to help you? Well, they didn't. But how many friends do you have exactly? Lots of friends. There's the Hokage, Iruka-sensei, the Ikarakas, Kakashi-sensei, and my teammates, Sasuke and Sakura. Ah yes, your teammates. They didn't look too friendly towards you back in the classroom where we took the first part of the exam. That one boy looked he was going out of his way to insult you, and that pink-haired girl was far more interested in using you for her punching bag instead of a teammate. Well, they're always kinda like that, but they're good people once you get to know them. Naruto replied, but truth be told, he wasn't too sure anymore. This girl was making some rather valid points. And how many times have they supported you in your dreams? Kin asked. None actually. They treat me more like I'm a nuisance. Naruto said as reality was starting to set in. Kin had to suppress a shark-like smile. She had him, and now it was time to go in for the kill. Metaphorically, of course. Naruto. She started in a somewhat sympathetic tone. Has it occurred to you that perhaps the people that you think are your friends may not be your friends at all? What are you talking about? Naruto said, trying to fight back tears that were starting to form for some odd reason. Well, you told me yourself. Kin replied. The people of this village treat you lower than garbage. You're willing to risk your very life for the people you consider to be friends when they need help. Yet when you need help, they were nowhere to be found. And your own teammates treat you like their own plaything to toss around and throw away as they please. I wouldn't think of people like that to be my friends. Naruto said nothing as he could feel the tears starting to flow out of his eyes. He now knew why the tears were there. Because whether he wanted to admit it or not, everything this girl said was true. He didn't truly have friends. He had people who merely tolerated him. It seemed like everything he did was never good enough. As those depressing thoughts were swirling through his mind, he felt a something soft gently wiping his face. Naruto snapped out of his thoughts to see that Kin was gently wiping the tears from his face with a black cloth. She had a look of concern on her face. Naruto, would you like to know what my idea of a friend is? Kin asked in a soft, caring tone. The blonde slowly nodded. To me, a friend is someone likes you for who you are. Someone who is there to listen to what your dreams are and support your choices no matter what. Kin replied. After a few quiet moments, Naruto opened his mouth to speak. Will you be my friend? Not only will I be your friend, I'll show you what a true friend is supposed to be like. Kin replied with a gentle smile. With that, the raven-haired girl gently hugged him. The orange-clad boy hugged her back. Thank you. He happily replied. You're welcome. Kin gently stroked the back of Naruto's head while mentally congratulating herself. The two separated from their embrace. When we get some time off from the exam, would you like to hang out with me and my team? Sure. Naruto replied. Suddenly, without warning, Kin moved forward and gave the blonde a kiss on the lips. As Naruto's brain was processing the fact that a girl just kissed him, Kin moved down slightly to kiss Naruto on the side of his neck. As she did so, the raven-haired girl gently bit down, drawing blood. Naruto felt a little pain, but it was quickly replaced with a strange sense of pleasure. Unknown to the orange-clad young man, as Kin was sucking some of his blood, the girl bit her tongue and pumped some of her blood into the small wound she had made in Naruto's neck. Kin's tongue healed quickly, and as soon as it did, she licked the neck wound to seal it. As the raven-haired girl pulled away, the area she bit was marked by a small red Jashin symbol. A second later, the mark vanished as if it were never there. When Kin raised her head to look at Naruto, she had to resist laughing out loud at the look the blonde Jinchuriki had on his face. Not that I'm complaining, but what was that for? Naruto asked. Just helping a friend know what it feels like to receive actual affection from a girl. Feels much nicer than a punch to the face, doesn't it? Kin replied in a somewhat seductive tone. Naruto just nodded dumbly. Plus, you can think of it as motivation to get through this part of the exam. I hope to see you at the tower. I'll be waiting, Kin said as she vanished into the forest. And just like that, she was gone. Wow, if that was her way of making friends, I wonder what she does when she's looking for a boyfriend? Does she have a boyfriend? Kin didn't go too far as she hid herself in a tree. She watched Naruto for a few minutes before the orange-clad boy went on his way. Probably off to find his teammates, no doubt. Seeing as there was nothing else to do, the young high priestess started to make her way back to where she and her team agreed to meet. Shinku and Midoriko would have had to have found a heaven scroll by now. If not, they had plenty of time to track one down. As far as Kin was concerned, the hard part of this whole thing was over. She made contact with Naruto, and to a degree, he trusted her. On top of that, she gave Naruto the kiss. Not the simple lip lock session she has with him, though Kin had to admit, he wasn't too bad for a beginner, but rather the bite on his neck. By ingesting some of his blood and pumping some of her blood into him, Kin now had a one-way mental link to Naruto. It was all downhill from here. All Kin had to do now was just keep manipulating Naruto into hating the village and make the boy think that she was the only one that he could trust on the planet. The link she now had with Naruto would certainly make things even easier. I'd have to say that by the time the exams are over, he'll be ready to follow me barefoot into the depths of hell, and the prophecy is one step closer to being fulfilled, Kin thought as she made her way through the tree. Along the way, the raven-haired Jashinist broke out into evil laughter. Chapter 3. Planting the Seeds of Doubt. When Kin finally reached the rendezvous point, Midoriko and Shinku were waiting for her. They both looked like they had quite a battle as they both had blood on their clothes. Well, did you get the scroll? Kin asked her teammates. Well, not exactly. Midoriko timidly replied, as if breaking some bad news to the raven-haired Jashinist. We ran into a slight snag. Yeah. Shinku grumbled as he wiped some of the still fresh blood on his hands on his shirt. Just as we were about to attack those losers from Amigakure, a couple of huge snakes pop up from out of nowhere, and those Aimnin run like the cowards they are, leaving us to deal with the snakes. Under normal circumstances, this would upset me, Kin said with a frown that turned into a small grin. Fortunately, I'm in too good of a mood. You found what you were looking for, Kin-chan? Midoriko asked. Yes, Midoriko, I did. Kin said as the memory of her encounter with Naruto replayed briefly in her mind. But enough about me, let us focus on this part of the exam. The High Priestess looked over to her feral teammate. Shinku, can you still track the Amigakure Genin? It'll take a bit of work, but yeah. Shinku replied. Good. Kin said as she drew her tri-scythe. Slaughtering those cowards and offering their blood to Jashin-sama will be the perfect way to end today. The raven-haired Jashinist looked over to her teammates. Let us go. We have some hunting to do, and the night is very young. Shinku and Midoriko both nodded. A moment later, the trio from Yamagakure took off to hunt their prey. 000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000 The raincoat-clad shinobi weren't too used to giant reptiles attacking, so they were still fairly shaken up. Though Kin did have to admit, there seemed to be more of the giant snakes around than any other creatures, which was strange. In addition to the spies that the Jashin sent to Konoha, Yamagakure also sent some spies to their own to help out with reconnaissance, and the intelligence report on the forest that she and her team had gotten before heading to Konoha had stated that the giant reptiles were fewer in number and the intelligence department of Yamagakure were always pretty accurate when it came to recon. Like it all matters. Kin thought to herself, those cowardly heathens won't have to live in fear for much longer. The thought brought an evil smile to the High Priestess' face as she put her hands together as if praying. Jashin-sama, your servant humbly asks you to bless the slaughter that is about to commence as I eviscerate these foolish non-believers in your name. Kin said in a low tone as she prayed to her god. Shinku and Midoriko both overheard the prayer that their teammate just offered to the deity of her religion, and in all-out honesty, the green-haired girl and the feral young man felt that they really should be used to the creepy crap that Kin and the other Jashinists of Yamagakure personified. As a whole, the Jashinists didn't really stick together in large groups, but a considerable number of them resided in Yamagakure. Neither Shinku nor Midoriko really knew all the details, but the story going around was that the Jashinists of Yamagakure and the Yamakage had some kind of agreement. The Jashinists would have a safe haven in the Darkness Village to practice their macabre religion. In exchange, the Jashinists would lend their numbers to Yamagakure's forces. So far, the agreement was benefiting both sides rather nicely. Yamagakure had some powerful, albeit sadistic, allies, and the Jashinists were adding to their numbers, as there were a fair number of converts from the village who showed some interest in the religion. In a village that was comprised of some of the more bloodthirsty and sadistic shinobi and kunoichi in the elemental nations even before the Jashinists came to town, it wasn't too hard for some of Yamagakure's population to get behind a religion that frequently practiced the fine art of slaughter. Kin, Shinku, and Midoriko Sensei was one such convert. Let's go, Kin said as she got up with her tri-scythe in hand. It was time to make a tribute to Jashin. Meanwhile, the three Reinin were huddled close to each other, planning out their next move. They were completely unaware of what was about to befall them. How nice. Kin spoke up, startling the Amigakure Genin. The three little mice managed to avoid becoming snake food, only to become three little lambs to the slaughter. The three Reinin quickly stood up and were on guard as Kin and her team walked into the area. Hi boys. Remember us? Shinku said with a feral smile, while Midoriko waved hello. We're here for your scroll and your lives. Kin said with an evil smirk. It's those Yamagakure punks from earlier. One of the Aimnin said. I thought those snakes got him? Another Reinin added. No, but you're going to wish that were the case by the time we're done with you. Kin said as she used her tri-scythe to cut her palm. Surprising amounts of blood poured out of the self-made wound and onto the ground. Once enough of the viscous liquid was on the ground, Kin licked her palm and the cut she made was healed. Using her right foot, the Jashinist High Priestess drew a large Jashin symbol on the ground with her blood. The Reinin looked on in disgust and wonder as they were trying to figure out just what the hell the raven-haired girl was doing. Shinku, Midoriko. Kin addressed her teammates. The two genin in question turned towards the Jashinist. You two stand back and save your energy for whatever is next in this exam. These cowardly non-believers are mine. Shinku snapped his fingers in annoyance, while Midoriko pouted rather adorably. While they wanted to protest further, they both knew not to get between Kin Tsuchi and her victims, especially after she drew the symbol of Jashin on the ground. Now then, Kin said as she faced the three Amigakure genin. Shall we begin? The Reinin were hesitant at first before one of them started to get smug seeing that Shinku and Midoriko were indeed sitting this one out. Come on you two, we can take her. It's just one weak little girl against the three of us. We can take her. This seemed to boost the confidence of the other two genin. Yeah, you're right. One of them said. How tough can she be? The other arrogantly stated. Tell you what, heathens. I'll let the three of you have the courtesy of the first strike, Kin said as she stuck her tri-scythe into the ground. You can do anything. Stab me in one of my vital areas. Gouge my eyes out. Hell, you can even slice my head off. But whatever you do, you idiots better make sure it counts. Because if you fail, you die. Looks of confusion graced the faces of the Amigakure ninjas as they were wondering if this girl was seriously serious. Let's move it, morons. I don't have all day, Kin growled, getting impatient. That shook the Rainin out of their stupor as they drew their weapons. One of them had a straw umbrella with a short blade sticking out of the top, while the other two had large kunai daggers that were more like short swords. If that's what you want, you little skis, that's what you'll get. The genin with the umbrella yelled as he and his teammates charged towards Kin, who was standing still as she didn't have a care in the world. A moment later, the three Rainin attacked the raven-haired Jashinist at the same time. The one with the umbrella blade stabbed Kin right through her neck, while the other two stabbed her in two of her vital areas. One in her kidney, the other in her heart. It looks like someone was nothing but talk. The Rainin with the umbrella sneered. He then looked over to Shinku and Midoriko. To his surprise, neither of them looked concerned. Hope you three said your goodbyes, Shinku said. And what are you two going to do about it? One of the Rainin with the short sword said. Who said we were to do anything? Shinku replied with a knowing smirk. Yeah, Kinchan told us to stay out of it, so we are. Midoriko added. Besides, are you sure you want to be looking at us and not at her? She's right, you know, Kin suddenly said. The Rainin turned with shocked expressions to see that, despite being stabbed through the neck and in two vital areas, the raven-haired girl was still alive and well. And instead of looking like she was in immense pain, the Jashinist looked annoyed. Was that it? Kin asked. Was that the best you three cocksucking heathens could do? The three Amigakure jumped away, leaving their weapons embedded in the girl. What the hell? The aim genin with the umbrella said with wide eyes. She's alive. But how? One of the others shouted in disbelief. Is she immortal? The other said. Wow. Look at the brain on the genius over there, Kin sarcastically said as she pulled the umbrella out of her neck. As soon as she did, the gaping wound was beginning to heal itself. In less than 2 seconds, the only sign that she was ever wounded was the blood on the front and back of her neck. The Rain genin looked on in horror as the Jashinist proceeded to pull the large kunai out of her kidney and heart. Kin looked at her intended victims with a dark smirk. Judging from your stunned silence, I take it that it's my turn now, the High Priestess said as she gripped the two short swords in an attack stance. The Amigakure genin barely had enough time to react when Kin suddenly charged toward them. In an instant, Kin was in front of one of the genin. Before the Rainin's brain registered that Kin was there, the raven-haired Jashinist impaled him in the gut with both blades. Snip, snip, Kin said as she used the blades to slice the genin in half, his upper half hitting the ground with a meaty slap just before his lower half fell backwards. No. Hyoto. The other Rainin who also wielded the swords yelled as he watched his teammate die a savage death. Don't feel too bad, Kin said as she started towards her next victim. You're about to join him. The angered Rainin drew out a pair of kunai. You bitch. I'll make you suffer. This only made Kin smile. Just before the Rainin attacked, Kin quickly moved behind him and used the swords to stab the genin in the same places that she was stabbed, the kidney and the heart. Before the Rainin fell, Kin quickly grabbed the genin's kunai and stabbed him in the neck. He was dead before he hit the ground. That just left the genin with the umbrella. And then there was one, Kin said as she waved her hand to her side. A few yards away, Kin's tri-scythe was suddenly pulled out of the ground and flew to the hand of its mistress. The remaining Rainin looked at the carnage around him. His eyes were wide with terror, seeing how his teammates were killed with such ease and brutality. He then looked at their killer, who was readying her tri-scythe. The Rainin quickly fumbled through his coat and pulled something out. It was the Heaven Scroll. Here, please take it. Just spare me. The aim genin rolled the scroll over to Kin. The raven-haired Jashinist looked down at the scroll and then looked back at the genin with a look of disgust. Coward, the High Priestess said as she picked up the scroll and then tossed it to her teammates. Kin then slowly walked towards the remaining genin. Wait, what are you doing? I gave you the scroll. The Aimnin frantically screamed. Apparently, you weren't paying attention earlier, Kin said with a voice full of malice. I said that I was here for your life as well as the scroll. As Kin stalked towards genin, she summoned a fancy-looking short sword into her hand with a quick burst of reddish-black energy. The hilt consisted of a gold dragon's head with wings on either side of it, and the jet-black blade looked like it was coming out of the dragon's mouth. Kin grabbed one of the genin's hands and cut his palm with her sword. She let go of his hand and licked the blood from the blade. To the Amigakure genin's surprise, Kin walked away from him as if she had what she wanted from him. What was that for? The aim genin asked with more than a little fear in his voice. The preparations have been completed. Now, the ritual shall begin, Kin said as she stepped into the Jashin symbol she drew earlier. The aim genin just remained where he was as he was just too freaked out to do anything else. And now heathen, Kin continued as she started to slowly turn back around to face the Rainin. It is now time for you to die. The Rainin thought he was going to have a heart attack right there, and then when Kin finally faced him, her skin went from a pale creamy white to jet black. There were also several grayish-white markings on her face and exposed skin, making her look like a skeleton. The maniacal look on her face just added to the already horrific scene. Now where to start first? Kin asked herself. Maybe the hands? With that, the Jashinist high priestess took her sword, stuck the blade into her right palm, and began to cut. As the Jinin was trying to figure out what was going on, he felt a sharp pain in his right palm. He looked to see that a blade wound was suddenly forming on his palm. Maybe your leg? Kin said as she suddenly stabbed herself in her upper left leg. A surging pain suddenly engulfed the Raineen's left leg in the same spot Kin stabbed herself. Or perhaps I should return the favor from earlier when you stabbed me in the neck? Kin said as she took her sword and slowly sank the black blade into the same place she was stabbed earlier. The Jinin clutched his throat as the pain of something being stuck through his neck could be felt. He could also feel blood filling his throat. Kin pulled the short sword out of her neck as the Nin coughed up blood, while making some rather disturbing gurgling sounds as he coughed. A moment later, he was dead. The skeletal markings on Kin's skin receded, and the Jashinist high priestess skin color returned to normal. The self-inflicted wounds rapidly healed themselves as well. After sheathing her sword, Kin put her hands together and began to pray. Jashin-sama, I thank you for granting me such a bountiful harvest of victims. To show my appreciation, I offer the blood of these spineless heathens as tribute, my lord. Shinku and Midoriko said nothing as their teammate continued her ritual. Now that they had the scroll that they needed, the Yamagakure Jinin were ready to get going. But they knew from past experiences not to interrupt their Jashinist teammate while she was praying to her god. Unless, of course, they wanted to end up as tribute for Jashin as well. Just because there was an agreement in place between Yamagakure and the Jashinists didn't mean that neither side was entirely safe from the other. After patiently waiting for about 20 minutes, Kin stepped away from the symbol she was standing on. The ritual is complete. The raven-haired Jashinist said, Let's go. Shinku and Midoriko nodded, and the team from Yamagakure took off towards the tower. After reaching the tower, Kin and her team were greeted by their sensei after delivering the scrolls. That was brief. Anaheim Guki, a Jonin from Yamagakure and a Jashin convert, said as she looked at her students. But judging from your appearances, I'm assuming it wasn't uneventful. You could say something like that. Kin replied. Did you take care of your other assignment, Kin? Anaheim asked. Yes. The high priestess smiled evilly. Good. Anaheim said as she looked to her other two students. Since you all arrived early, get some rest and prepare yourselves for what may come. Shinku and Midoriko nodded and left in search of a place to sleep. Kin stayed behind with her sensei and fellow Jashinist. You used the kiss on him? Anaheim stated. I did. Kin said. The rest should be easy. Don't be so sure, Kin. Anaheim cautioned. The kiss is a potent weapon, but it is not completely foolproof. I know what I'm doing, Anaheim sensei. Kin replied. I'm aware of that. I'm just telling you not to assume that it's over until it's over. Anaheim said as she walked away. Kin silently growled. She hated it when someone doubted her abilities, but a part of her knew that Anaheim had a valid point. Her sensei may have converted to the ways of Jashinism, but Anaheim and her family converted when the Jonin was still a child. As a result, Anaheim had been a Jashinist longer than Kin, so she knew what she was talking about. Regardless, I'd better check up on him, Kin thought. She had already planted the seeds of doubt in Naruto. Now, it was time for them to grow and bear fruit. Kin walked off and found her teammates inside a room with a couple of rows of bunks. They were clearly for the people who would make it to the tower. In another corner of the room, Kin noticed the trio from Suna. Neither the girl with the large fan or the young man with the kabuki face paint and the wrapped bundle on his back seemed to be much of a threat. The redhead with the huge gourd on his back, on the other hand, that guy was creepy on levels not even Kin wanted to go near. Maybe we should sleep in shifts? Midoriko said in a low tone, so only her teammates could hear. Kin noticed that she and Shinku were looking at the Suna trio, or more specifically, the redhead with the gourd. Yeah. Shinku agreed. There's something about that guy over there that gives me the creeps. I'll take the first shift, Kin said. I have things to do before I go to sleep. Midoriko and Shinku gave no argument as they picked a bunk and fell asleep. Kin sat down on a chair beside her teammate's bunk. With a final glance towards the Suna trio, the raven-haired Jashinist made a quick hand sign, closed her eyes, and started to concentrate. Where are you, my love? Kin thought just before shaking her head. Where the hell did that come from? Chalking it up to a lapse in concentration, the raven-haired Jashinist refocused on the task at hand. Though I do have to admit, he is rather cute with those whisker marks. And he wasn't a bad kisser. Focus, Kin. You have a job to do, and you don't have time to give in to hormones now. After a few moments, Kin found Naruto and quickly established the mental link that came from the kiss. Found you, Kin whispered. Forming another hand sign, Kin closed her eyes and concentrated again. When the Jashinist high priestess opened her eyes, she found that she was no longer in the bunk room, but rather in a sewer. This must be his mindscape, Kin said as she began to walk. Before Kin could start to truly turn Naruto to the dark side, so to speak, she needed something to work with. She figured the easiest thing to do would be to dig up memories of Naruto's childhood, specifically the negative memories where the villagers treated him like garbage. From there, she would tweak the memories and turn them into nightmares. Make it seem that the people he considers to be his friends are among the people who hate him. After that, She would implant some thoughts about herself into Naruto's mind where she would move in to save him from the villagers, further emphasizing the point that she was the only one that he could trust. An infant could pull it off. As the raven-haired Jashinist walked, she heard a growl coming from one of the tunnels. What was that? Kin followed the sound. After turning a couple of corners, the high priestess found herself before a large cage. On the front of the cage was a large piece of paper with the kanji for seal on it. What business do you have here, girl? A cool female voice said from within the cell. As Kin blinked, the sound of footsteps coming towards her could be heard. A moment later, a beautiful woman stepped into view. She had smooth blood-red hair that was just about as long as Kin's own jet-black locks. There was also a slight shimmer to it, making her hair look like there was a small waterfall of blood behind her. Her slitted eyes were a bluish-violet color that almost seemed to glow in the darkness. She was also dressed in a black kimono with red trim that showed off her cleavage, long legs, and hourglass figure. Strapped to her side was a katana with a black and red handle connected to a small chain. Think Tensa Zangetsu from Bleach. The most striking feature of this woman, however, had to be the 9 fluffy tails that were connected to her lower back. I assume that I'm in the presence of the great 9-tailed fox? Kin asked, trying not to let her confusion show. The raven-haired Jashinist had pictured the great beast to be, well, more monstrous, not a strong candidate for Playmate of the Year. In a way, yes. The woman answered as she started to get a better look at Kin. She took note of the tri-scythe strapped to her back as well as the pendant she wore around her neck. Now answer my question. What business does a Jashinist have here? If you are the QB, then you would know that Naruto has led a rather difficult life thanks to the heathens of the leaf. Kin replied. This resulted in an animalistic growl from the QB woman. Whether it was directed at Kin or the villagers, the girl didn't know. Since those idiots have been so diligent in dishing out mental and physical abuse towards Naruto, I thought I would help him in returning the favor in kind. Kin continued. You see, in my religion, there's a prophecy that states that the most powerful high priestess, that being me, and the Jinchuriki of the most powerful of the 9 beasts, that being Naruto, will deliver chaos and destruction throughout the land in the name of Jashin-sama. I'm here to take Naruto away from this cesspool of weakness so that he may embrace the ways of Jashin-sama so that the both of us can fulfill the prophecy. The woman's eye narrowed dangerously. So in other words, you wish to turn Naruto into the very thing that the people of the leaf proclaim that he is. She growled. Yes, Kin replied, seeing no real reason to feed the woman before her a load of bull. She was half expecting the QB to tell her to leave or face her wrath. Imagine Kin's surprise when a small grin formed on the woman's face. Nice to know I'm not the only one who wants to see those ignorant fools get what they deserve for what they did to my son. Your son? Kin raised an eyebrow. Do explain. The story going around the leaf is that the 4th Hokage saved the leaf by sealing the QB into a newborn child after the beast broke free of its previous host. Many saw it as the ultimate act of sacrifice, but what the fools of the village don't know was that the 4th was capable of killing the fox. But if that were to happen, Konoha would lose its greatest trump card. The woman said with more than a little hint of sarcasm. He would have resealed the fox back into its previous vessel, but that wasn't an option as she had passed on. The release of the QB had weakened the previous Jinchuriki greatly, but it was the birth of her child that killed her, the child that would be used as the QB's next Jinchuriki. However, what no one, not even the 4th Hokage, knows is that during the sealing process, the soul of the previous Jinchuriki had merged with the soul of the QB. Kin's eyes widened at the revelation. So that would make you? I am Kushina Uzumaki, the new QB. She proclaimed. Whoa. Kin said. This was one of the very few times that the high priestess was rendered speechless. For 12 years, I have watched helplessly as my son has been used and abused by those ungrateful bastards. He had been purposely neglected in his training, and even after he gives his heart and soul for the people of the leaf, they turn around and spit in his face. Kushina said with venom in her voice. I can't tell you how many times I have cried at the pain that Naruto has suffered through, and at the fact that I can't do anything to comfort him. He has suffered all because dear old daddy didn't want the village to be weak. The woman was on the verge of tears, and despite herself, Kin was really beginning to feel bad for her. And the funniest part of it all is the fact that the 4th Hokage wanted Naruto to be seen as a hero. Faye, we all know how that turned out. I can assure you, the heathens of the leaf will get their comeuppance after I turn Naruto against them. Kin said. How do you propose to do that? Kushina said. Kin then went on to explain her plan. Sounds promising. Kushina had to admit. Provided that Naruto is not harmed, of course. As a Jashinist, I am many things. But one thing that I am not is someone who breaks their word. Kin said. Now I won't lie, I may have to push Naruto a little in order to move things along, but I assure you that I won't intentionally harm him. I hope not. Kushina said in a tone that was dead serious. Because you know my standing on people who harm my son. Wouldn't dream of it. Kin replied. That being said, shall we begin? Kushina made some hand signs. Some of the water on the ground began to rise up off the ground and formed a bubble of sorts. Inside the bubble was an image of Naruto walking hand in hand with Sakura. What Naruto sees in that girl is beyond me, Kushina said in disgust. It's clear that she has eyes only for that Winnie Uchiha brat. I've noticed. Kin sighed. He could do so much better. Kushina smirked at the girl. I know he can. Kin missed the smirk as she raised her right hand towards the bubble. As she did so, viscous red liquid quickly coated Kin's hand, changing its shape into a mean-looking claw. Time for pink to become Naruto's least favorite color. The high priestess said as she took one clawed finger and pushed it into the dream bubble. Meanwhile, Naruto was having one of the best dreams in a long time. The sun was shining, he had free ramen for life at Ichiraka's, he was next in line to become Hokage, and the best part of it all was that he and Sakura were engaged. Life was perfect. Naruto, there's something I want to tell you. Sakura said in a sweet tone. Sure, Sakura-chan. What's on your mind? Naruto replied, giving the pink-haired girl his signature smile. I will and forever loathe you. Sakura said as her expression changed from serene to disgust. Huh. Naruto shook his head, wondering what the hell was going on. Did you honestly think that I would ever love a pathetic demon like you? Did you truly believe that you could ever be better than Sasuke? Sakura said in a voice full of malice. What are you talking about, Sa-da? Naruto never got a chance to finish as Sakura punched the blonde in the face and sent him flying into a wall, leaving a large dent where he impacted. Don't ever say my name, demon. You're not worthy enough to even think it. Sakura growled. By this time, all the villagers and ninjas in the area stopped what they were doing and all looked at Naruto with glares of hatred. To the blonde's shock, his classmates and the people closest to him were among them. Monster. Irika practically spat the term. Looks like the dead last demon is doing what he does best, Kakashi said, acting like a nuisance. I say we finish was the fourth started and kill him, Sakura said as she drew a kunai. Kill him, Irika yelled. Naruto was too shocked to do anything as he saw the people that he thought were his friends. The very people that he had sworn to protect were closing in on him with the intent of killing him. Naruto. The voice of the third Hokage could be heard as everyone cleared a path for their leader. Ji-san, help me. Naruto begged. No. The old man sneered. You've been an embarrassment to this village and to me for far too long. I should have done this long ago. The Hokage then looked to everyone. Destroy him. He coldly ordered. This can't be happening, Naruto said as he tried to run, but found that he was surrounded. Time for me to enter the fray, Kin said as she poked another talon-like finger into the dream bubble. Just as the villagers were about to give Naruto the mother of all beatings, the blonde shut his eyes. After a full minute, Naruto opened his eyes to see that he was no longer surrounded by people who were out to kill him. Instead, there was one person in front of him. Hello, Naruto. Kin greeted the boy with a pleasant smile. Nice to see you again. Kin? Naruto asked. The one and only. The raven-haired girl replied. What just happened? Where did everyone go? Naruto asked, clearly confused as to what was happening. You mean all of them? Kin replied as she pointed to her right. Naruto turned his head and immediately felt his eyes widen in shock. Littered on the ground were countless corpses, and the ones closest to Kin and himself were Naruto's precious people. The Hokage, Irika, the Ichiraka family, Kakashi, Sakura, Sasuke, the rest of the 9 rookies and their senseis. Each corpse looked brutalized, as if someone took every killing tool conceivable and used them to their fullest. What happened to them? Naruto asked, feeling more fear at such a gruesome sight than when they were all about to attack. You killed them, of course. Kin explained as if it were the most normal thing on earth. What? Naruto said as he looked at his hands. The blonde paled when he saw that his hands and his clothes were covered in blood. No, I couldn't have killed them, but you did, Kin said as she took her left hand and gently caressed Naruto's cheek. And it's all right, because they deserve to die. What? What do you mean? Naruto asked in a nervous tone. You killed them because they were going to kill you, Kin explained as she continued to caress Naruto's cheek, which was starting to calm the blonde down. Therefore, they all deserve to be slaughtered. But they were Naruto started. Your friends? Your precious people? Kin finished. If they truly were your friends, would they attack you? No, Naruto said. Of course they wouldn't, Kin said as she moved her face closer to Naruto. They don't understand you, Naruto. And as a result, they fear you. Fear me? Naruto asked. Yes, Kin replied. It's a well-known fact that humanity fears what it doesn't understand. And humanity tramples on what it fears and doesn't understand. And to them, it's all fun and games up until they find themselves on the receiving end of the punishment. Naruto said nothing as everything started to sink in. It was then that the Jinchuriki started to feel tired. Kin gently sat him down. Think about what I told you, Naruto, Kin said as she started to float upward. And remember what I told you when we met. I'll be your friend. With that, Kin vanished and Naruto's eyes shut. Back inside Naruto's mindscape, Kin withdrew her clawed hand from the dream bubble as it dissolved. That should give him a nudge in my direction, Kin said as she morphed her hand back to normal. Impressive, Kushina said from her cell. So, about this prophecy? It says that you and Naruto will work together. Does that mean that you two will eventually marry? The redhead said with a mischievous look. This resulted in Kin's face becoming just as red as Kushina's hair. How would I know? The raven-haired girl quickly replied, clearly embarrassed. It may be a prophecy, but nothing is ever certain. Kushina just sighed, as if disappointed. Well, that's a shame. I was so looking forward to grandchildren. And with hips like yours, they would probably pop right out. If anything, Kin's face got even redder. I gotta run, Kin quickly said as she vanished in a puff of smoke. Coo. Sheena just giggled. Ah, young love, such a beautiful thing. Kin opened her eyes to see that she was back in her body in the tower. Oh man, it's bad enough my own mother is on my case about finding a boy. Now I got another woman talking about grandkids. The raven-haired Jashinist thought as she looked around the room. She noticed that the red-headed Suna boy was gone, but his teammates were asleep in beds on the other side of the room. There were also a few new arrivals as well. It was one of the Konoha teams, the one that had the feral boy with the puppy in it. He, the puppy, and the indigo-haired girl were asleep in bunks nearby. Apparently, they had the same idea as Kin and her teammates about sleeping in shifts as the boy with the frazzled hair and sunglasses was awake and sitting in a chair by his teammates. Both Kin and the young man looked at each other for a moment before resuming their own business. Speaking of shifts, looking at the clock by the door told Kin that 4 hours had passed. How time flies these days, Kin said to herself. With a yawn, the high priestess decided that it was time to get some sleep. Shinku, wake up, Kin said as she shook her feral teammate awake. Huh? What? Shinku blinked a couple of times. Your turn, Kin said as she took the bunk beside his and Midoriko's. Wake Midoriko up in about 4 hours. Right. Shinku said as he got up and Kin fell asleep. For some odd reason, thoughts of Naruto entered her mind as she slept. Several days later, the genin that passed the second part of the Chunin exam were all gathered in a large room that looked like an arena of sorts. Kin looked at the teams that were gathered. There was the Sand team, the team from Odo, and 5 Konoha teams, along with the team from Yamagakure. The senseis from each team were all standing up front with the proctors and the Hokage. After the Hokage explained the meaning of the Chunin exam, a sickly-looking jonin named Hate appeared. Since we seem to have a large number of participants, we're going to have preliminary one-on-one battles to reduce the number of participants for the finals. The coughing jonin explained. If there's anyone who is unable to compete, raise your hand and you can go. But by doing so, you forfeit your place in the Chunin exam. Kabuto was the first to raise his hand and was excused. Sakura wanted Sasuke to forfeit, but the Uchiha would have none of it. Just let him have his way, Sakura, Naruto grumbled. If he's that desperate to get the crap kicked out of him because he's too hard-headed to know when to quit, then let him. What did you say, Dobe? Sasuke growled. You heard me, but maybe you'd like me to show you instead? Naruto growled back as images of him butchering the smug Uchiha entered his mind. The blonde shook his head to clear the images. Ever since he had that strange dream the other night, he had been more irritable than usual. On top of that, whenever Sasuke or Sakura started getting on his case, he would envision himself brutally mauling them. Faye, you're not worth my time, Dobe, Sasuke replied, deciding to drop the subject. Besides, the pain from the curse mark was dying down. Whatever, pussy, Naruto said, low enough so no one could hear. Kin watched the little exchange between Naruto and the Uchiha and had to grin to herself. The kiss was doing its job rather nicely. Over the past few days, Kin used her mental link with Naruto to implant images of him killing people, most notably his teammates. She also used it to implant images of herself and Naruto spending time together. Just a few more little pushes and he's mine, the cults I mean. Ever since the first night, the grandkids comment from Kushina really got under Kin's skin. Damn red-headed furballs. Hey, what did I do? Shinku asked. Not you, idiot, Kin growled. After it was clear that no one else was going to forfeit, the electronic board on the wall behind the giant hands in the arena began to shuffle. It stopped on Midoriko taking on Misumi, one of Kabuto's teammates. Everyone else was told to go up to the platforms above the arena and wait their turn. As everyone turned to make way for the first match, Kin walked up to Naruto. Well, hello, stranger. Nice to see you again, Kin greeted the blonde. Upon seeing the raven-haired girl, Naruto blushed. Hello, Kin. So, how have the exams been for you so far? Kin asked as they walked. Good. We made it. That's the important thing, Naruto replied. Are you all right? Kin asked. You look like you have a fever. I'm okay, Naruto quickly replied. It's just that I've been having some weird dreams lately. Oh? About what? The raven-haired Jashinist asked, even though she knew full well what the boy was dreaming about. Well, Naruto started as his blush vanished and got serious. I've been having these really violent thoughts lately about killing people. Really? Kin replied, raising an eyebrow. Well, we are ninjas, and killing is part of the job. Yeah, I know, Naruto said. But to have thoughts like that all the time? That's a little disturbing, don't you think? Why not? I do, Kin said in a matter-of-fact tone. What? Naruto said, feeling surprised. I'll explain later, Kin promised. Well, good luck in the matches. Hey Kin, wait a minute, Naruto said as he gently grabbed her hand. A soft blush appeared on Kin's cheeks at the feeling of his skin touching hers. There's something else? Yeah, Kin asked. There were some other dreams I've been having about me and you. Oh, have you? Kin replied softly as she felt her cheeks heat up. And I remembered what you said when we met, about hanging out together when we get some free time from the exams. I was wondering if that offer's still up? Naruto asked. Kin gave the blonde one of her few legitimate smiles. Of course, She replied as she reluctantly started to walk away. Akin, there's one more thing. Naruto said. Yes? Well, there's this one other dream I had last night. Oh? What was it about? The Jashinist noticed that Naruto was starting to blush heavily. Well, it's probably nothing, but I was dreaming about you and me living together and having about 5 kids, and there was this red-headed woman who kept going on about having so many grandkids. Kinda strange, don't you think? If Kin's jaw wasn't firmly attached to her skull, it would have hit the ground. And her face was so red, it would made the reddest tomato pale in comparison. Are you alright, Kin? Maybe you got a fever too? Naruto asked, feeling concerned. Fortunately, Kin recovered rather quickly. Oh, I'm fine, thank you. The High Priestess said so fast, Naruto almost didn't know what she said. As far as the dreams go, it's probably something in the water around here. Yeah, probably. Naruto replied. Well, see you when the exams are over and good luck. You too. Kin said as she started up the stairs to join her team. As she walked, the raven-haired Jashinist clenched her fists. Note to self, have a chat with Kushina at the earliest convenience. Chapter 4. Embracing the Hatred. Midoriko Reijiki, the green-haired girl from Yamagakure, had quickly dispatched Misumi from Kabuto's team with her lightning-based jutsu. Once the stretchy genin wrapped himself around the smaller girl, Midoriko simply used that jutsu to electrify herself and electrocute Misumi, making it 1-0 for the village hidden in the darkness. Naruto looked down at the arena, but he wasn't really paying any attention to the fight. The normally hyperactive blonde was taking the downtime to try and make sense of what was happening to him. Normally, Naruto was a very happy person who wanted to do good things and earn the respect of the villagers and shinobi of Konoha. But now, he wasn't very sure what to believe anymore. The orange-clad young man looked over at the platform across the arena and spotted the raven-haired girl who had become the forefront of his thoughts lately, Kin Tsuchi. Over the past few days, Kin had hit Naruto with some cold hard facts that were really starting to change his outlook on life. And the more Naruto thought about how the villagers and the people he thought were his friends treated him throughout his life, the more of what Kin was telling him made sense. Plus, Kin was able to do what many in the Leaf couldn't do. She not only accepted the fact that he had the QB sealed inside him, but she also made him feel loved. At first, Naruto was thinking that she was trying to con him somehow and set him up for something, much like some of the villagers had done to him when he was younger, but there was just something in the way she talked with him that made him think otherwise. Naruto noticed that Kin looked up from the fights and looked at him. Blue eyes met jet black eyes, and the girl from Yamagakure gave the blonde boy a caring smile. Sadly, the moment was brought to a close as fate decided to intervene. In the form of Sakura. Naruto, you idiot. Pay attention. The pink-haired girl screeched as she punched the blonde in the head, bringing Naruto back to reality and damaging the eardrums of almost everyone in the arena. Normally, this would result in a goofy look on Naruto's face and an apology from the blonde as he scratched the back of his head. This time was different. Now maybe it was the stress of the exams, maybe it was the revelations about the village he was experiencing, or maybe he was just in a particularly bad mood. But what happened next shocked everyone who knew Naruto. In one fluid motion, Naruto did a 180-degree spin. As he did so, he grabbed Sakura's neck and slammed her against the stone wall behind them. Sakura was about to fight him, but the murderous look in Naruto's eyes made her think twice. Naruto, Kakashi said in a stern voice, gaining the blonde's attention. When Naruto looked at his teacher, the silver-haired man wondered if this was some imposter using a very potent hinge, but at the same time, he knew it was his late sensei's son. Please let go of Sakura, Kakashi said, trying to calm Naruto down. After a long tense moment, Naruto let go of Sakura's neck. The pink-haired girl gasped for breath as she tenderly rubbed her throat and looked at her blonde teammate with more than a little fear. You wanted my attention, so what is it? Naruto growled. Kakashi cleared his throat. The Hokage is about to make an announcement. Naruto then turned his attention down towards the giant arms on the stage where the Hokage was standing and was being joined by 2 other people, Koharu and Hamura from the village council. Naruto growled at the 2 old crones. Having spent time around the Hokage growing up, Naruto has had several dealing with the 2 elders. He knew they didn't like him, but that was okay, because he hated their guts right back. Kakashi looked at Naruto and wondered what caused such an outburst of anger. Could the fox's seal be weakening? No, Minato-sensei was the best of the best when it came to seals. Maybe it's the stress of the tests? That could be a plausible explanation. Since Kakashi had flunked every team that came before his current team, he was usually called upon to be a proctor in the Chunin exam, and he had seen firsthand how the exams could change people mentally, and 9 times out of 10, it wasn't pretty. Maybe Guy had a point. Maybe I should have waited another year before signing them up for the exam. Kakashi's thoughts were interrupted when the Hokage began to speak. I apologize for the interruption, and I promise this won't take long. Sarutobi said. It's come to my attention that since only one person has dropped out of the preliminaries, we are left with an odd number of participants, which means one person is left without an opponent. Therefore, one of the participants will receive a bye to the finals and will not have to compete today. The Konoha Council has determined that that person will be Sasuke Uchiha. This was met with multiple reactions. Sasuke, despite the pain in his shoulder, smirked arrogantly. Ino and Sakura, despite the pain from her neck, both squealed in delight, knowing that their crush was going to the finals. Almost all of the Konoha boys and Tintin merely groaned and rolled their eyes at the fact that the Uchiha got a free pass. Hinata just hung her head as her confidence dwindled even further. The Konoha Jonin, including Kakashi, and many of the foreign shinobi just looked at the Hokage, the elders, and Sasuke with looks of disgust at the blatant show of favoritism. Oh, this is just perfect. Kakashi thought sarcastically as he looked at the Uchiha. Just another thing for him to lord over everyone else. Orochimaru, disguised as the Odo Jonin, looked indifferent, but inwardly smirked as Sasuke would have plenty of time to get used to the curse mark. Meanwhile, Naruto, much like Orochimaru, had a look of indifference and apathy on his face, but on the inside, he felt his anger rising. Why am I not surprised? Naruto thought. The team gets a lucky break yet again. Knowing my luck, I'll get stuck facing that Gaara guy or that spandex-wearing freak and get my ass handed to me, not if I have a say in the matter. A female voice could be heard in Naruto's head. Huh? Naruto said aloud as he looked around with a bewildered look on his face. Who said that? The blonde asked more to himself than anyone else as he looked around. I did, your tenant. The voice answered. Naruto's eyes widened in shock and fear. The fox. He mentally gasped. Naruto looked around to see if anyone else could hear what he was hearing. Relax, Naruto-kun. No one can hear me but you. The Kyuubi explained. Just think of what you want to say, and I'll hear it. Naruto just blinked as he gradually started to calm down. Okay. The blonde thought. Good. Kyuubi replied. Not that I'm complaining, but I expected you to be more hostile towards me. After all, I'm the reason why the villagers look down on you. Well, that may be, but the villagers are the ones who hurt me, not you. What should I call you, exactly? Naruto thought. For now, call me Kushina, right? So, what did you mean by your first comment? Naruto asked. As much as it pains me to admit it, the Uchiha is a powerful little brat. However, you have me sealed inside of you, and as such, I can give you my power. With my help, you have the potential to become one of the most powerful shinobi in the world, easily making the Uchiha look like a total weakling in comparison. Kushina explained. As visions of greatness and gloating over Sasuke started to fill his head, Naruto realized something. And then what? I would basically become the very thing that the villagers say that I am. A demon, a monster. No. Kushina snapped angrily. Let me make one thing clear. You are not a demon, and you are certainly not a monster. The sudden outburst caught Naruto by surprise. Inside the seal, Kushina took a deep breath as she collected herself. The only true monsters and demons are the foolish villagers who have dared to put their filthy hands and cause you harm. Don't ever let those pieces of trash tell you different. Kushina told him in a calmer, almost motherly tone. That sounds a lot like some of the things Kin has been telling me. Naruto said as he looked over to the raven-haired girl across the arena. Ah yes, the girl from Yamagakure. Kushina said. I've heard the things she has been saying to you, Naruto-kun, and I must say that she brings up some interesting points about Konoha. In fact, I know quite a few things about the great and noble village hidden in the leaves. Beneath its nice wholesome surface lies a mess of corruption. I believe that. Naruto replied as he looked towards Sasuke and his two primary fangirls. The very sight was enough to make him sick. As Naruto looked on, all of the things Kin had been telling him, all the recent violent dreams and all of the mental and physical abuse he had suffered throughout his short life came to the forefront of his mind. Okay, Kushina-san, you said that you would give me some of your power. What do you want in exchange? Inside the seal, Kushina smiled evilly. From her cage, she was watching a bubble that showed her what Naruto saw, and currently, the blonde was looking at Kin. Oh, we'll sort out the details later. Kushina replied in a mischievous tone. For now, just concentrate on your fight. It should be coming up soon, right? Naruto replied. And with that, the mental link was disconnected, leaving Kushina alone for the moment. You can come out now, Kin. I know you're here. The redhead said, and sure enough, out of the darkness of the tunnels stepped Kin. A little risky to be having an out-of-body experience now, isn't it? Kushina addressed her potential future daughter-in-law with a hint of humor. I could say the same for you. Kin replied. I overheard the conversation you and Naruto just had and I must say bravo. Your little pep talk has put him in the right state of mind to give into his hatred and embrace the way of Jashin. The Hokage and Konoha did most of the grunt work. Kushina said with a tone of disgust. That public display of sucking up to the Uchiha brat was what broke the camel's back. And now, all Naruto needs to do is unleash his fury on the poor fool who has the bad luck to be his opponent. Kin said, aren't you worried that you could be his opponent? Kushina said, you need not worry about that. The raven-haired high priestess said confidently. My teammate Midoriko will see to it. What do you mean? Kushina asked. The Reijiki clan of Yamagakure originated in Kumogakure, but they were exiled several generations ago because they were deemed a threat by the Reikage at the time. Kin explained. They're highly proficient at various forms of electrical-based jutsu, but their true claim to fame is the fact that the Reijiki clan are extremely potent technomages, and Midoriko is considered a prodigy of her clan. Basically, they have the ability to control any electrical or mechanical object, like, say, the randomizer for the preliminary matches here today. Realization hit Kushina. Ah, I see. It was then that a thought occurred to the demonic redhead. Kin, You are among the very few who has shown my son true kindness, and for that I am grateful. But since you pointed out that your teammate can manipulate the match randomizer, I do have a favor to ask of you. Which is? Kin asked. In your match, I want you to face that pink-haired bitch who has been using my son as her personal punching bag. Kushina replied with a growl. Use her as an example as to what happens to those who hurt my Naruto-kun. Kin smiled darkly. It will be a pleasure. It's time these heathens got a taste of the way of Jashin. Good. I know you'll make Naruto-kun happy. Kushina said. Before I go, I've been meaning to ask you. Kin started. I know I have been implanting visions into Naruto's dreams, but earlier, he informed me of another dream he has been having. One where I have given birth 5 times, and a certain someone was giddy about grandkids. Kin said with a tone of annoyance. You wouldn't happen to know about that, would you? You're right, Kin. You caught me. Kushina sighed. I did give Naruto-kun that particular dream about the both of you having 5 children, and I'm sorry. I won't happen again. Thank you. Kin said. Maybe next time. I'll make it 10 children. Kushina said mischievously. Like I said, you got the hips for it. What? Kin yelled. Do I look like a factory to you? Good point. Kushina said. Instead of showing the babies, maybe I should just give Naruto-kun a dream about the both of you making babies instead. Kin's face was redder than a beet, both from anger and from blushing. You are so lucky those bars are separating us. With that, the raven-haired Jashinist vanished back into her own body, leaving Kushina alone in her cage, laughing her ass off. Kin returned to her body with a look of anger on her face. That woman is insufferable. And I thought my mother and grandmother were irritating. Kin-chan? Midoriko asked in a low voice. What? Kin snapped. Do you want to go next, or should Shinku go? The green-haired girl gulped. Kin took several deep breaths as she calmed down. She looked over at Naruto. The blonde had a look of dead seriousness on his face. He was ready. Neither of us, Midoriko. I want Naruto to go next. Who do you want to have him face then, Kin-chan? The technomage asked. Kin quickly looked around the room to see who she had to pick from. If the Uchiha didn't get a bye, he would be the perfect victim, and Pinky already has a date with my Tri-Scythe. So who does that leave? The Suna kid with the gourd on his back? No way. That's too risky. Same for that weirdo in the green spandex. One of the sound ninjas? They already look banged up enough as is. I need Naruto-kun to face someone who's not too tough, but not too easy either. Kin looked at the Konoha side of the arena. She thought about feeding the Hyuga girl to Naruto, but though against it, she looked absolutely pitiful and out of place among most of the other Konoha nin. Right beside her was the feral-looking Inuzuka boy. In the days before the exam, Kin had heard him go on about how Naruto was a runt and would love to take him out of the exam. Kin just grinned. Congratulations, Flea Farm. Dreams do come true. The High Priestess thought as she turned back to her teammate. Midoriko, stop the randomizer on Naruto and the Inuzuka. Got it. Midoriko said as she looked over at the electronic name display. The technomage reached out to the mechanical components of the machine with her mind and took control. A few seconds later, the name stopped on 2 names. Naruto Uzumaki versus Kiba Inuzuka and Akamaru. Alright, Akamaru. We just hit the jackpot. Kiba hooped. Naruto just looked at them with a wicked grin. It's time. Kin said as the two made their way down to the arena. Chapter 5. The Way of Jashin. Naruto and Kiba stood across from each other down in the arena. The Inuzuka boy said his canine companion and looked at his opponent with an arrogant expression. Naruto just moved his head sideways a few times to pop some of the bones in his neck. This is gonna be easy, Akamaru, old buddy. Kiba said with a smirk. If I had a dime for every time I heard that expression. Naruto grumbled before trying to contact Kushina. Hey, Kushina-san, are you ready? Yes, Naruto-kun. Kushina said as she began to channel her chakra into Naruto's system. The blonde could feel the demonic chakra mixing with his own. This should be more than enough to make the Inuzuka not only eat his words, but the floor as well. Naruto grinned evilly as he got into an attack stance. Kiba noticed this and was about to break out into laughter, until he heard a whimper from Akamaru. What is it, boy? Kiba asked, concerned for his friend. Akamaru whimpered some more before hiding behind one of Kiba's legs. The last time he acted like this was after we saw that Gaara guy slaughter those rain genin. He couldn't be getting that kind of vibe off Naruto of all people, could he? Kiba looked over at Naruto again, and this time, the usually cocky Inuzuka took a moment to really get a good look at his blonde opponent. He wasn't his usual hyperactive self. That was certain. Plus, there was that scene from earlier where Naruto grabbed Sakura by her throat and pushed against the wall to consider. Plus, Kiba did manage to catch the verbal spat Naruto had with Sasuke when the proctors were calling for people to drop out of the prelims. Okay, so maybe he toughened up a little during the forest exam. Survival tends to bring out the viciousness in people. Kiba thought as he looked at Naruto and then back down at Akamaru. Akamaru's never been wrong before. I'll just finish the run quick. No sense in taking chances. The next match will begin. Naruto Uzumaki versus Kiba Inuzuka. Hate stated as he raised his hand. Begin. The proctor said as he brought his hand down, signaling the start of the match. A millisecond later, Kiba performed a series of hand signs to perform one of his signature jutsu. Fong over Fong. With that, Kiba spun forward like a flying drill, intent on finishing Naruto off as fast as possible. Just as the Inuzuka heir was about to hit his target, Naruto quickly dashed to the side with surprising speed, sending Kiba ricocheting of the stone wall. Fong over Fong. Kiba called out again as he zoomed towards Naruto again. Up above on the platform, the Konoha shinobi watched the battle unfold. Faye, I'm surprised the dobe has managed to last this long, but it's only a matter of time before Kiba catches up with him, Sasuke said, feeling a little better from the curse mark. I hope Kiba tears him to pieces, Sakura angrily said as she rubbed her throat. Hinata looked over at Sakura. The memory of Naruto grabbing the pink-haired girl by her throat and slamming her against the wall replayed in the Hyuga girl's mind. While the indigo-haired girl knew it was wrong to think it, but part of her was happy that Naruto did it. Maybe he's finally over Sakura? Maybe now, he'll notice me? Personally, I'm kind of hoping Naruto knocks Kiba down a few pegs, Shino said to himself in a low tone. But still, I'm sensing some kind of strange chakra coming off Naruto. Plus, he's just as boastful as Kiba, yet, he hasn't made one proclamation about being Hokage since the start of the Chunin exam. The bug user thought to himself, I've heard that the Chunin exam can change people, but this is too unusual. Shino wasn't alone in his observation. Shikamaru had the same thoughts, as did the Konoha Jonin, especially Kakashi. Hold still, will ya? Kiba yelled as Naruto constantly avoided his attacks down in the arena. What's wrong, Kiba? Naruto asked as he avoided another Fong attack with ease. You said this was going to be easy. Is the dead last giving you too much to handle? This just angered Kiba more. Alright, that's it. The kid gloves are off, Kiba yelled as he reached into his pocket to fish out a bag of soldier pills. But before the Inuzuka could pull the pills out of his pocket, Naruto charged forward with surprising speed and hit Kiba with a flying kick, sending the feral boy flying backward and the soldier pill bag out of his grasp. Oh no you don't, Naruto said as crushed the bag and its contents with his foot. Can't have a juiced-up mutt running loose, now can we? Everyone on the stage and on the platforms, except for Kin, looked down at Naruto in shock. What the? How the hell did the dobe get that fast? Sasuke said. He tried to use his Sharingan, but the pain of the cursed seal made him think twice. Not too far away, Niji Hyuga activated his Byakugan and looked at Naruto. Strange, the Hyuga said to himself. He seems to have two different kinds of chakra. How is this possible? The Konoha Jonin overheard Niji's observation and instantly knew what he spoke of. The Kyuubi's chakra. The four Jonin all thought, this is almost the same as the final battle with Zabuza and Haku back on the bridge. Kakashi thought to himself. But this time, Naruto is more in control of his actions, and he's doing a better job of hiding the chakra. Kakashi let out a small sigh. First Orochimaru gave Sasuke the same hickey he gave Anko, then Naruto starts acting strange and now this. If it's not one thing it's another. Meanwhile, Kiba was slowly getting up while holding his ribs. Naruto enjoyed the sounds of pain that the Inuzuka boy made as he slowly made his way back to his feet. That was when the blonde suddenly heard the sound of small feet and claws coming from behind. Naruto turned just in time to see Akamaru leap towards Naruto, ready to bite him. But just as the small puppy was about to reach his target, Naruto grabbed Akamaru in midair. Akamaru! Kiba cried with concern for his pet. I suppose now would be a bad time to mention how much I hate dogs, Naruto said as he held Akamaru by his neck with one hand and pulled a kunai out of his pack with the other. Let him go, Kiba yelled. Not another step, Kiba, Naruto growled as he pointed the dagger towards the puppy. Or I start playing Operation with your mutt. That stopped Kiba in his tracks. This surprised all of the Konoha ni. Now then, Kiba, Naruto said in a calm voice. If you want your mutt back, all you have to do is say two little words. I quit. Kiba said nothing, but looked at Naruto with hatred in his eyes. Tick-tock, Kiba. Just so you know, it's going to be hard to walk the dog when the dog has no legs. To emphasize his point, Naruto moved his kunai towards one of Akamaru's hind legs. Okay, alright, I quit, Kiba shouted. Now let him go. You got it, Naruto said as it looked like he was going to put Akamaru down, until he threw the dog towards one of the walls. All Kiba could do was watch in horror as the small animal hit the wall with a sickening thud and a pain-filled squeal. Akamaru! Kiba yelled in terror as he ran over to his friend. Akamaru fell to the ground. The spot on the wall where he hit left a few cracks and a small splash of blood. Kiba gave Akamaru a quick look over. The small puppy was still alive barely. The medics quickly rushed over to help out. Almost all of the spectators looked at the scene, wondering if Akamaru was alright. Kakashi and Sarutobi in particular looked over at Naruto with shocked expressions, wondering why Naruto would do such a thing. Sarutobi, Hamura shouted. There's no way you can allow something like this. I agree, Koharu said. The boy has gone too far this time. As much as Sarutobi hated to admit it, his old teammates were right. But before the Hokage could say anything, Kiba charged towards Naruto with kunai in hand. Naruto, you bastard! Kiba yelled in a blind rage. Just as Kiba was about to attack, Naruto managed to turn his body and wrap both of his arms around Kiba's left arm. The sudden change in momentum brought the Inuzuka stomach first to the ground with Naruto right beside him, holding his arm. Kiba tried to turn, but Naruto held him tight. Why so glum, Kiba? Naruto asked. I let your mutt go like you said, you piece of shit, You could have killed him. Kiba growled angrily. Is that so? I guess I'll have to work on my throwing arm. Naruto said without remorse. That's enough. Sarutobi bellowed in a commanding tone. Naruto, release him, now. Naruto looked away from Kiba to see that the third Hokage and Kakashi were standing above him with Hate, Kurenai, and Enko. For a moment, Naruto just looked at them with a go-to-hell look. Classic. If Sasuke pulled something like this, nothing would happen to him. The blonde thought angrily. Naruto. Sarutobi said calmer, but still in a tone of authority. I won't tell you again. Let Kiba go. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he slowly let go of Kiba's arm. The Inuzuka wanted to attack there, and then, but Kurenai pulled him away. Sarutobi, this is grounds for disqualification, not to mention disciplinary action. Hamura said as he and Koharu walked up. Blow it out your ass, you old fuck. Naruto barked. If your precious Uchiha did something like this, you would have broken out the popcorn. Admit it. What did you say, Dimnesh? Hamura started to say until Sarutobi directed a cold gaze at his former teammate. Before Naruto could say anything else, Kakashi put his hand over the blonde's mouth. That's quite enough, Naruto. You're already in enough trouble as is. Don't make it worse. The cycloptic Jonin said as he pulled Naruto away. Sarutobi closed his eyes for a moment and let out a sigh. I'm getting far too old for this. The old man thought before speaking. Kakashi, take Naruto and follow me so we can talk privately. Kakashi nodded as he and Naruto followed. Up above on the platform, Kin watched the scene with concealed glee. Rejoice, Jashin-sama. Your newest acolyte is on the verge of taking his rightful place amongst us. Down in the arena, Hate cleared his throat to gain everyone's attention. Let us continue onward with the next match. With that, the electronic display started to cycle through the participants' names. Midoriko, have the randomizer stop on me and Sakura Haruno. Kin whispered to her teammate. Midoriko once again took control of the randomizer and the screen displayed Kin Thi versus Sakura Haruno. Sakura gulped as she looked across the arena to see the raven-haired girl smiling at her like a predator. The pink-haired girl thought about forfeiting, but then she looked at Sasuke. I can't wimp out now, not in front of Sasuke-kun. Her pride overrode her fear. Not after that incident in the forest where that snake freak bit Sasuke. I can do this. I'll prove to Sasuke that I'm worthy of being on his team, not like that loser freak Naruto. The two girls made their way down to the arena. The next match, Sakura Haruno of Konohagakure versus Kin Tsuchi of Yamagakure. Begin. Hate announced. Sakura jumped back as Kin drew her sword. Jashin-sama, behold your high priestess. I give my body and soul to the carnage to come. In your name, my lord and master, I will spill the blood of this unworthy heathen. Kin proclaimed to her demonic master. Sakura, as well as many of the other spectators, looked at the raven-haired girl with looks of confusion. But a pair of chocolate-brown eyes looked at the Jashinist high priestess with interest. A pair of eyes that belonged to Tintin Xiaoyu of Team Guy, to be exact. Tintin vividly recalled the first day of the forest exam. When she and her teammates split up to find their required scroll, the weapons specialist came across the Yami team as they cornered a team from aim. Tintin watched the entire scene from the trees above, and she had to admit, it was one of the most glorious things she had ever seen. The way that the seemingly immortal Kin brutally slaughtered her opponents was a thing of beauty. The raven-haired Jashinist was going to make mincemeat out of the pink-haired bitch from Kakashi's team. That much was certain. And quite frankly, Tintin thought that the oncoming pain couldn't happen to a better candidate, with the possible exception of the blonde girl Sakura frequently bickered with. Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka were complete embarrassments to the name Kunoichi. The way they fought over the Uchiha's attention instead of training was enough to make Tintin sick and feel insulted that she was a Kunoichi of the leaf. Meanwhile, back down on the ground, Sakura was about to attack when Kin did something that made her stop in her tracks. The raven-haired girl stuck her sword through her own free hand. Blood poured out of the self-inflicted wound and splattered on the ground. To Sakura's amazement, the wound healed itself quickly. What are you doing? Merely setting the stage. Kin replied as she started to smear the blood on the floor with her foot. Sakura couldn't see, but everyone else on the platform saw that Kin was drawing some sort of symbol, a triangle inside a circle. Setting the stage for what? Sakura asked, thinking that maybe she should have forfeited. Why tell you when I can show you? Kin said with a wicked smirk. With that, the Jashinist vanished in a blur. A heartbeat later, Kin was right behind Sakura. Boo! With a yelp of fear, Sakura narrowly avoided a swipe of Kin's sword. The pink-haired girl landed on her behind and quickly fumbled to her feet. Faye, how pathetic. Kin said as she saw Sakura scramble to her feet. I heard that the Kunoichi of Konoha were said to be the best. But now I see that the only things you Konoha sluts are good at are primping yourselves for some entitled punk and dick-riding until you can't dick-ride anymore. Tintin, Kurenai, and Enko growled at Kin's verbal jab, but they weren't too sure if they should direct their anger at Kin for such a comment, or at Sakura for the fact that she and many of the Uchiha's fangirls proved that Kin had a point. The battle, if it could be called that, continued, but it was more like Sakura avoiding Kin's sword attacks. But it was becoming apparent that the only reason Sakura was dodging the sword swipes was because Kin was letting her. Eventually, Kin had Sakura trapped at sword point. Okay. I forfeit. Sakura said frantically. Winner, Kin Tsuchi. Hate announced. Kin looked over at the sickly Jonin with a look of annoyance as she lowered her sword. Sakura let out a sigh of relief. Why are you looking so relieved, Pinky? Kin asked. Sakura looked up at the raven-haired girl, who looked down at her with a look of pure malice. Did you really think that giving up meant that you were safe? Huh? Sakura asked as Kin suddenly went through a quick series of hand sign. Water style. Blood seal barrier. Kin said as the Jashin symbol on the ground started to glow. A moment later, a red dome rose up from the symbol and started to expand, quickly covered most of the arena, including the area where Kin and Sakura were. What's going on? Hate said as he approached the dome of red energy but was unable to pass through. It's some sort of barrier. Take a good look around, Pinky. This is the scene of your death. Kin said. Am I death? Sakura said. Yes. The barrier is to ensure that we have no interruption from outside. We're basically in our own little world at the moment. Kin said. But there's no killing allowed during this part of the exam. Sakura said. Do you really think some stupid rule made up from some senile old man is going to keep me from my religious duties? Kin said. The way of Jashin is the way of total slaughter. When a follower of my master goes into battle, he or she fights to kill in Jashin-sama's name. Even half-killing is considered a sin in the eyes of my master. Sakura looked at the girl in pure terror as she sprung to her feet and ran towards the exit, but the barrier prevented her from leaving. The pink-haired girl banged on the barrier, but it did no good at all. She was so panicked that she didn't notice that Kin was right behind her with her sword raised. Sakura, behind you! Ino yelled from above. Sakura turned around, but was too late to avoid Kin's slash. The sword left a nasty-looking gash in the pink-haired girl's upper left arm. Sakura screamed in pain as she held her bleeding arm, waiting for the next strike. Strangely enough, it never came. Sakura opened her eyes to see Kin Simple looking at her with the same predatory grin she had when their names were selected for the match. Don't leave us yet, Pinky. I wouldn't want you to miss this, Kin said as she brought the blood-covered blade towards her mouth. What's she doing now? Sakura thought as Kin licked the blood off the sword. The Jonin and Jinin outside the barrier wondered the same thing, until they noticed that Kin was starting to change. Sakura felt her blood turn to ice as she saw that Kin's skin was rapidly changing from normal to jet black. There were also some parts of her face that turned an ashy gray, and the whites of her eyes were becoming blood red, making her resemble a skeleton. The preparations are complete. Now the ritual shall begin. Time for you to become a part of Jashin-sama, Kin said as she jumped back into the Jashin symbol she drew earlier. The raven-haired Jashiness took her sword and turned it on herself, pointing it at her throat. I was planning on slicing your stomach so your rancid guts could spill out, but this is a far more appropriate way to go. Silencing that wretched voice of yours both in this world and the afterlife, Kin said. But before we get to that part, let me first educate you in the art of pain. With that, the raven-haired girl stabbed herself in her own right leg. Before Sakura could understand what Kin was doing, the pink-haired girl felt incredible pain in her right leg, like someone stabbed her as well. Kin pulled her sword out of her leg and moaned in ecstasy before stabbing herself again. This time in her left leg. Sakura fell to the ground, screaming in pain and clutching her legs in pain as stab wounds suddenly appeared on her legs and blood started to flow out of them. Kin continued to stab herself in several other non-vital areas, which in turn transferred over to Sakura. Well, Pinky, this has been fun, Kin said as she looked over at Sakura, who was whimpering in pain. But fun time's over. Time to end this, Kin said as she pointed her sword at her throat. Goodbye. The onlookers outside the barrier looked on in shock and horror as Kin stabbed herself through her throat. For a moment, nothing happened. Kin fell to the ground with her sword still stuck in her neck. Everyone except Tintin and the Yami team thought that Kin had killed herself. But then Sakura fell to the ground as well with blood gushing out of the horrendous wound in her throat. Sakura! Ino yelled as the red barrier vanished. The platinum blonde girl jumped down off the platform with the Konoha Jonin and many of the rookies following. The only one who didn't was Sasuke, who had a look of indifference on his face. She was useless anyway. The Uchiha thought. He then looked over at Kin's prone form. Pity about her though. She would have made a decent Uchiha bride. Too bad she killed herself though. Naruto, let me just say that I'm very disappointed in you for your behavior during your match. What you did to Akamaru was completely uncalled for, Sarutobi said. Now what I want to know is why did you do it? Kiba and that mutt were just the first ones, Naruto said. For the past 12 years, practically everyone in this miserable village has thought that walking all over me was the funniest thing on earth. Yet, as Kiba and Akamaru found out, it's not so funny when I'm walking all over them for a change. Before Sarutobi or Kakashi could say anything else, a medic entered the room with a sad look on his face. What's wrong? Sarutobi asked, dreading the answer. During the previous match, one of the participants used some kind of strange jutsu that linked her body to her opponent. The medic explained. Any injury she inflicted on herself was transferred to her opponent. She then committed suicide, killing both her and her opponent. Sarutobi's eyes widened, as did Naruto and Kakashi's. Who were the participants? Sakura Haruno and Kin Tsuchi. The medic answered. Naruto felt his heart drop upon hearing the names, particularly the latter. Kin-chan, dead? In the tower's infirmary, a nurse covered Sakura's body with a thick sheet. She then turned to Kin's body, which still had her sword stuck in her throat. Strangely enough, Kin's skin had changed back to normal, so she no longer looked like a skeleton. Time to pull that thing out, the nurse said, but she never got the chance. Something sharp stuck her in the back. The nurse fell to the ground, dead. Anaheim, the Yami Jonin, pulled her kunai out of the dead nurse's back. The Jashinist convert placed the nurse on another stretcher and used a hinge to make her look like Kin. Anaheim then picked her student up and vanished in a puff of smoke. Both teacher and student reappeared in a dark room on one of the tower's lower levels. A room similar to the one where Kakashi seals Sasuke's curse mark. Anaheim pulled Kin's sword out of her throat. After a few minutes, the wounds healed up and Kin woke up. Enjoy your nap? A new voice said in the darkness. Anaheim and Kin turned towards the source to see Tintin step out of the shadows into the light. If you're really curious, then yes, Kin replied. What do you want? Well, for starters, I'd like to prove that not all of us Konoha Kunoichi are a group of dick riders, as you so eloquently put it, Tintin said with a hint of sarcasm. Second, I was just curious about your particular religion. What about it? Anaheim asked, raising an eyebrow. What needs to be done in order to join? Tintin asked. You wish to be enlightened by the way of Jashin? Kin asked. I saw how you killed those genin in the forest, and the way you killed the Haruno girl was a thing of beauty, Tintin said. Killing without remorse while using all kinds of wonderful tools like that sword and your scythe in the name of some demon god of death and destruction. How can I not get behind a religion like that? Kin and Anaheim look at each other. There's really nothing to it when it comes to following the way of Jashin. But I must ask, why the sudden interest? In case you haven't realized, there's a certain stigma that comes with being a kunoichi of the leaf. I'm sick of high-riding bitches like the Haruno tarnishing the label kunoichi and making people like me look bad in the process. And the way that the elders and people in charge blatantly suck up to the Uchiha and some of the other major clans is nothing short of sickening. Tintin explained. I have no family, so there's nothing anchoring me to the leaf. Ah, so you not only wish to follow Jashin-sama, but you also want to defect from Konoha, Anaheim said. Am I correct? After a moment, Tintin answered. Yes. Chapter 6. The New Converts. Sometime after the Chunin exam preliminaries, Naruto Uzumaki walked down one of Konoha's streets with his head down, looking down at the ground with a look of pure misery on his face. Many of the villagers noticed the depressed look on Naruto's face and regarded him with looks of smug malice, thinking that they have brought the Jinchuriki down emotionally. Naruto himself would have picked up on the villagers' attitude, but he was far too miserable to even bother. The blonde young man only had one thing on his mind: the loss of one of the very few people who truly accepted him for what he was, the one person who may have even loved him, and the one person he loved. Kin, just when I finally have some shred of happiness in my life, it's taken away from me. I really should be used to this crap by now, Naruto thought bitterly. Inside the seal, Kushina's heart cried for the pain that her son felt. She knew that Kin was still alive and well, and the anguish her child currently felt would be gone very soon. The demonic redhead remembered that Kin did say that there was a chance that Naruto would be hurt, albeit unintentionally. Still, that won't stop me from having a few stern words with her the next time she graces me with her presence, Kushina mentally growled. Meanwhile, Naruto just continued walking aimlessly along until he came to a bench. For the first time in a while, the blonde Jinchuriki looked around to see that he was out of the public areas of the village and was close to an unused training field. There was very little foot traffic on the pathway as well. For the moment, Naruto was alone, exhausted, both physically and mentally. The blonde young man sat down on the bench with a slump, alone with his thoughts once more. He didn't even notice that two pairs of eyes were watching him from a nearby tree. It is now time for you to truly embrace the way of Jashin, Kin thought as she and Tintin watched Naruto from her hiding place. You've already displayed the ruthlessness and malice needed to be one of us, Naruto. Now, it's time for you to spill blood in the name of Jashin-sama. The Jashinist high priestess made a quick hand sign and reached out to the minds of a small group of villagers. Earlier that day, Kin, under the disguise of a hinge, and Tintin walked around the village to find suitable candidates to implement the next phase of the plan, which would be the true final push that would have Naruto embrace the way Jashin. Thus far, Kin had been using nightmares to influence the Jinchuriki, and it had been working out fairly well. But the problem was that Naruto was unable to physically lash out at dreams, so the raven-haired girl needed to recruit some local talent to act as punching bags. Tintin recommended some drunk civilians, and Kin agreed. They were very weak-minded, meaning that they were simple enough to control, and on top of that, it was the villagers who were truly deserving of Naruto's wrath. By utilizing a simple mind control spell with her sorcery, Kin was able to take control of 3 drunks from a bar she and Tintin walked past. Now, all she had to do was find Naruto, and have her new puppets antagonize the blonde to the point where he would eviscerate them. Thus, Naruto Uzumaki's journey into the darkness that was Jashinism would be complete. Speaking of journeys into the darkness, Kin thought as she glanced at her brunette companion. I need to think of a viable target for Tintin here. But the raven-haired girl would think about that later, because right now, she had a prophecy to fulfill. Meanwhile, Naruto was so deep in his depression that he didn't hear the villagers stumble towards him. Well, look at this, boyus. One of the drunks slurred. It's the fox brat. The other two laughed menacingly. Naruto slowly turned his head to look at the three drunks with narrowed eyes. This seemed to make the drunks laugh more. Careful, boys. Another drunk slurred in a mocking tone. I think we hurt the demon's feelings. That's not possible. Demons don't have feelings. The third villager pointed out. Naruto started to clench his fists, making some of the bones in his knuckles pop. Trust me, boys. Today is not a good day to test me. Naruto growled. Oh, we're really scared, demon boy. One of the drunks sneered. What are you gonna do? Call for your mommy? Interesting choice of words. Kushina said through her mental link to Naruto. I think these three have reservations at the local morgue, Naruto-kun. Why don't we make sure they get there? That won't be necessary, Kushina-san. If I sent them to the morgue, that would mean their bodies are intact. If they don't buzz off, let's just say this area will become very popular with Konoha's crow population when I dismember these fucks and their remains are splattered all around. Naruto replied. Kushina grinned at her son for embracing his dark side. She looked at the three villagers through Naruto's eyes. She could sense that these three soon-to-be corpses were under the influence of more than just alcohol. She could detect that Kin was controlling their actions with her sorcery. The raven-haired Jashinist did explain to Kushina that this would be the final push that Naruto needed. As long as she didn't have the drunks do something too drastic, Kushina was willing to stand aside and let things play out. I'm in a real bad mood today, booze hounds. Naruto said as he slowly got up off the bench. So I'm giving you one chance only to go back to whatever shithole you crawled out of before I cut all three of you open and expose your internal organs to daylight. Up in the tree, Kin took a slow breath, getting ready for what had to be done. She sent her commands to the drunks. Did you hear that, boys? The demon brat just threatened us. One of the drunks yelled. Come, boys, let's finish what the fourth started. Another drunk holding a half-empty sake bottle by the handle said, as he smashed the bottle against a wall. Yeah. The third drunk agreed, cracking his knuckles. I gave you fucks a chance. Naruto said as he called upon Kushina's chakra, just enough to not only enhance his strength, but also so it wouldn't attract attention. Get him. The villagers ran towards Naruto, or at least the best they could when they were drunk. Just as the drunk with the broken bottle was about to bring the makeshift weapon down on Naruto's face, the blonde Jinchuriki grabbed the man by the wrist and snapped it like a twig. While still holding the drunk's wrist, Naruto impaled him right through the heart with his free hand. The other two drunks watched numbly as their friend died right before them. They didn't move or scream because Kin commanded them not to. As far as Naruto knew, they were stunned sober by the brutal death of their friend. One of the remaining two drunks ran towards the blonde, to which Naruto responded by hooking his right fingers into claws. A barely visible coat of red-orange chakra coated his hand. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki swiped at the approaching drunk, stopping him dead in his tracks. A moment later, blood gushed out of four horrendous-looking gashes starting on the villager's left shoulder and ended just below his ribcage. One of the gashes severed the left carotid artery on his neck. He would bleed out in seconds. That only left one drunk remaining. He looked more agitated than anything. You damned demon. I'll teach you the meaning suffering. In a flash, Naruto speared the drunk, sending him crashing back first to the ground. Wasting no time, Naruto nailed the villager's right hand to the ground with a kunai and grabbed him by the throat. Actually, you look like you could use a refresher course. The Jinchuriki growled. With that, he started to pummel the drunk unmercifully. Up in their hiding place, Kin and Tintin watched as Naruto beat the drunk to death. The sound of the villager's nose being crushed was surprisingly loud. Kin watched the scene with an evil smile on her face. Jashin-sama, I proudly present your newest acolyte. The raven-haired girl thought. Tintin watched the scene as well. Despite the fact that she was witnessing a public mauling performed by one of the least likely of people, the brunette weapons specialist couldn't help but get more than a little turned on watching Naruto turn Kin's drunk puppet into mulch with his bare hands. After a few minutes, Naruto finally stopped. Slowly getting up, the blonde Jinchuriki started to shake slightly as he looked down at victims. His first true human kills. The first drunk had a huge gaping hole where his heart used to be. Had the gashes in the second villager been a little deeper, he might have been split in half from the shoulder down. But at least the first two still looked human. Naruto looked down at his third victim. His face looked like it had gone through a meat tenderizer. The blonde looked down at his hands to see his knuckles were coated with blood, gore, and fragments of skull. Reality started to sink into Naruto's mind. He just brutally killed 3 men in cold blood, and he started to feel sick. WW have I done? The blonde whispered to himself. It was one thing to envision ending someone's life and witnessing it firsthand. Actually doing it yourself was another thing altogether. Naruto, calm down. Kushina said through their link. They came at you with the intent of harming you, possible killing you. You gave them a chance to leave, but they didn't listen. They deserve to die. Kin and Tintin watched Naruto continue to shake. I think that's your cue. Tintin told the high priestess, who was already in the process of silently chanting a basic sleeping spell. Down below, before Naruto started to lose his mind, he suddenly started to feel very sleepy. He tried to stay awake, but his eyelids felt heavy. The blonde Jinchurikis finally closed just as he was about to fall backwards. Just before he hit the ground, Kin and Tintin sprung into action and caught him. Let's not linger, Kin said. Tintin nodded, and the two disappeared in a swirl of smoke. About 10 minutes later, a man, woman, and their young son were walking down the dirt path, enjoying their day out as a family. There's a bench. Let's rest for a moment, the father suggested. The mother agreed while the little boy ran ahead, full of energy. The boy laughed happily until he reached the bench. That was when his laughter turned into screams of terror. Yuri, what's wrong? The father cried as he and his wife ran towards their son and started screaming themselves when they saw what their son saw. 3 bodies, one of them whose face had been mutilated beyond recognition. Their combined screams attracted the attention of shinobi that were in the area. Alert Lord Hokage at once, a jonin ordered. Hokage's office. 3 brutal murders inside a ninja village in broad daylight, and no one sees a thing. Sarutobi groaned as he pinched the bridge of his nose. He, Koharu, and Hamura were in his office. What can be worse? Perhaps Orochimaru is feeling a little bold? Hamura suggested. Sarutobi pondered that notion. It was possible that Orochimaru could have had a hand in the 3 murders, but it didn't make a lot of sense that the snake Sannin would waste his time or effort on a trio of drunks. Plus, he wouldn't bring such needless attention to himself. When he revealed himself during the Chunin exam to Anko and Kakashi, Orochimaru made sure that his intentions would be known to the higher-ups of the Konoha hierarchy and not the citizens or lower-rank shinobi. Actually, Lord Hokage, some of our sensors examined the bodies and they found small traces of chakra that belonged to the QB. A Chunin explained. That was all Koharu and Hamura needed to hear. What? Hamura yelled. That could only mean that the Uzumaki brat killed those men using the QB's power. Koharu said. Sarutobi, his actions at the Chunin exam were deplorable enough, but this calls for the brat immediate imprisonment. The old Hokage took off his hat and ran his fingers across his head, trying desperately to think of an alternative. While what Naruto did to Kiba and Akamaru at the preliminary exam was brutal, the blonde was well within the rules. After all, Gaara of the desert crushed Rock Lee's arm and leg with his sand, and Niji Hyuga beat Hinata within an inch of her life. Yet they were still in the finals. But this, killing 3 civilian presumably using the QB's power, was something else. Sarutobi truly wanted to help the boy, but this incident provided all of his detractors all the ammunition they needed. Put Naruto away in solitary. Or worse, put him into the clutches of Danzo and his root program. Sarutobi, even you cannot deny that something must be done, Hamura told his old teammate. Sarutobi groaned before putting his heat back on. I have no choice, the old man said with a sigh of resignation. He then snapped his fingers and instantly, 2 Umbu ninja appeared. Find Naruto and bring him here, alive and unharmed. The Hokage ordered the 2 Umbu. With a nod of understanding, the 2 masked ninja vanished. Minato Kushina, forgive me for what I must do, Sarutobi thought sadly. Underground ANBU bunker. You're sure no one else knows of this place? Kin asked Tintin. The 2 girls sat on either of a cot where Naruto slept, still under the sleeping spell Kin cast on him. Kin's teammates and sensei were at the inn back in Konoha. Since it was thought that Kin was dead, the raven-haired Jashinist stayed with Tintin. For the final time, yes, I'm sure. Tintin sighed. Bunkers like these have long since been deemed obsolete by Konoha's council. When I first found the place a few years back, the layers of dust have told me that the place hasn't been used since God knows when. And the tunnel that connects to this bunker leads a couple of miles out of the village. Good. It'll save us a lot of trouble when it finally comes time to leave this pathetic excuse for a village, Kin said as she looked down at the sleeping Naruto. She would wake him up with a revival spell after he rested for a while. But first, Kin thought as she looked up at Tintin. Tintin, while we wait for Naruto to rest, I think it's time that you proved your worth to Jashin-sama, the high priestess said, gaining the brunette's attention. Naruto has already proven himself and now, it's your turn. Tintin just smiled evilly. I was hoping you'd say something like that, the weapons mistress said as she stood up. But before I go, may I ask something? Shoot, Kin said. You don't mind if I have a little fun with my victims, do you? Tintin asked with a smirk. Kin looked at her with an evil smirk of her own. I'm not known for my micromanagement skills. Just try not to take too long. I'm rather anxious to return to Yamagakure, and I've had about all I can stomach from this heathen-infested cesspool and all of its hypocrisy. Glancing back down at Naruto, the raven-haired Jashinist thought to herself, though I wouldn't mind if she took her time either. Tintin noticed Kin looking down at Naruto, gave another smirk before walking off. I'll get to it then, the brunette said as she made her way out of the bunker, leaving the Jashinist high priestess and the Kyuubi Jinchuriki alone. Once Tintin was gone, Kin entered Naruto's mindscape. When she reached Kushina's cage, she noticed that they weren't alone. Inside the cage was Naruto himself, or his subconscious. Kushina held her son and gently ran her clawed fingers through his golden blonde hair. I was starting to wonder when you'd grace us with your presence, Kushina said as she continued to hold her son lovingly, while looking up towards the Jashinist high priestess. You do remember what I said to you about those who cause my son pain, be it physical or emotional, correct? The redhead said in a stern voice that told Kin that she was not a happy camper. I do, Kin replied. I also remember telling you that during the course of this plan that Naruto would be hurt, unintentionally I might add. For that I apologize. Kushina narrowed her violet eyes at the raven-haired girl and growled slightly. While I disapprove of some of your tactics, I must say that all in all, your plan has worked rather nicely. Yes, Kin said. The first real kills are usually the most difficult to cope with, but it will pass. For the most part, the hardest part of this whole thing is over. Once Tenten returns, we'll meet up with my teammates and sensei and we'll be ready to return to the village hidden in the darkness. Once there, Naruto and Tenten will undergo the ritual of the acolyte. Ritual of the acolyte? Kushina raised an eyebrow in curiosity. Yes, it's the initiation ritual all converts must go through to be accepted in the eyes of Jashin-sama. Kin explained. If Jashin-sama is impressed with what he sees, he will grant the new acolyte one of his blessings. It is also during the ritual that the acolyte is given their pendant and their tri-scythe. Kushina could easily imagine Naruto wielding such a deadly weapon. The thought brought a smile to her face. I'd better return to my body. Tenten informed me that the bunker we're in is safe enough, but one can't be too careful. Kin said. Kushina nodded as the raven-haired girl vanished, leaving the QB queen alone with her son's subconscious. Soon, my son, we shall have our vengeance on the leaf. Kushina said as she continued to stroke her son's hair. Night had come to the village hidden in the leaves. Many citizens of the village were sound asleep in their beds, some of which knew nothing of the wrath that was about to befall them. Tenten stood on the roof of a building just across from the building that housed her first victim, Ino Yamanaka. Part of Tenten was highly disappointed that Kin had already killed Sakura. The brunette would have loved to have been the one to bring an end to the pink-haired banshee's miserable existence. Oh well, can't have everything yet. The weapons specialist thought to herself as she quietly leapt across to the Yamanaka roof. From there, Tenten silently made her way down towards the window going into Ino's room. The window was already open, so sneaking inside was a cakewalk. Tenten was pleased to note that her footsteps made no sound. Practice makes perfect. Pity Ino here won't be able to say the same. The brunette thought as she brought out her favorite weapon, a kunai dagger with a serrated edge. She smiled wickedly at the sleeping platinum blonde girl. Picking up a small throw pillow with her free hand, Tenten gently placed the pillow on Ino's face, gradually adding more pressure. Just as Ino started to stir, Tenten took her kunai and slid the girl's throat, severing both carotid arteries. Ino's screams were muffled by the pillow. Seconds later, she was gone. Tenten removed the pillow, relishing in the look of agony on Ino's face. No time to gloat. I still have plenty of victims and the night is still young. The brunette thought as she silently left out the same way she came, leaving a very unpleasant surprise for Inoichi and his wife when they woke in the morning. Within the next few hours, Tenten left more than a few dead bodies in her wake. Each one of them were known admirers of Sasuke Uchiha, and each one murdered in a fashion more brutal than the last. Tenten's last victim was crucified above her bed with a hideous gash starting from her neck down to her navel. That should appease Jashin-sama rather nicely, Tenten thought as she made her way back to the bunker, ready to begin her new life as a follower of Jashin. Naruto slowly opened his eyes as he gradually awoke from the sweet oblivion of sleep, only to see that he was in a place unfamiliar to him. Where am I? The blonde asked in a soft tone. It wasn't his apartment or the hospital. It looked like some kind of cave. With me, said a familiar female voice, which woke Naruto up fully. The QB Jinchuriki slowly turned his head to see a face he thought was lost forever. Have a nice rest? Kin asked with a serene smile. KK Kin? Naruto blinked several times, hoping that he wasn't dreaming. Is that really you? Of course it's me, Kin said as she gently caressed Naruto's whiskered cheek. Why wouldn't be me? But they said you were dead. Naruto said as tears started to form in his eyes. Who said I was dead? Kin asked, acting surprised. One of the proctors from the exam and the other Genin and Jonin. Naruto answered. Kin narrowed her eyes. How typical. The fools in charge of this village will do anything to cause you nothing but grief and keep you under their thumbs. They would even stoop so low as to lie to you that I was dead. What do you mean? Naruto asked. People at the Chunin exam were beginning to notice that you and I were becoming close friends. When they saw us together, they felt threatened. That's the real reason the Hokage pulled you aside and removed you from the arena. He wanted you gone so one of his cronies would show up and feed you some bullshit story that would hurt you. Kin explained. But I saw you body in the infirmary. Naruto said. It was someone hinged to look like me. Kin replied. While you were gone, I had my mock against your former teammate, Sakura. After I beat her to a pulp, those two old farts who were sucking up to the Uchiha ordered the ANBU to take me away. They couldn't stand to see a foreign kunoichi not only kill one of the Uchiha's potential breeding stock, but also be friendly to the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. They kept me in a detention cell while they had someone impersonate my corpse in order to take away the happiness that you and I have created together. So they all lied to me? Naruto said, his tearful relief at seeing his friend alive, and well turning into potent anger at those that he thought deceived him. Those fossils on the council don't surprise me. They love to bend over backwards to screw me over. And now the old man too? Hook, line and sinker. Kin thought as Naruto clenched his fists so tightly that his fingernails started to dig into his palm and draw blood. He was so focused on his anger that he didn't notice that Kin hugged him until he felt her arms wrap around him. It's okay now, Naruto. None of that matters because we're together now, and no one is going to separate us again. The raven-haired Jashinist gently said before kissing Naruto on the lips. Naruto, for his part, felt his anger subside in favor of surprise. I could get used to this, the blonde thought as he felt Kin's tongue enter his mouth and dance with his tongue. After a few moments, the need for oxygen caused the two to separate from their kiss. Would you like to come live with me in Yamagakure, Naruto? Kin asked. I guarantee you that you will be far more respected and beloved there than you will be here. Yes. Naruto answered with no hesitation. He had enough of Konoha's lies and putting up with their crap. Being able to start a new life in a place where he would be treated like a normal person was far too good an opportunity to pass up. Kin smiled. There's one more thing I must ask, Naruto. Would you like to join the Church of Jashin? Church of Jashin? Naruto asked, intrigued. It's the religion that I practice, which is the way of total slaughter. If you were to become one of us, Jashin-sama will endow you with one of his sacred blessings. Combine that with the power of the Kyuubi, and you will easily become one of the mightiest warriors in the Church of Jashin. Kin explained. And you never know. One day, you may want to return to this miserable village to give all of these heathens and non-believers a taste of the pain you've endured. I've got to admit that I'm not much for religion, but you really make it sound good. Naruto said. I'm in. When do we leave? As soon as our other convert arrives back from her errand. Kin replied as the sounds of footsteps could be heard coming towards them. Ah, here she is now, the high priestess said. Naruto turned around to see a familiar-looking brunette walking towards them. Hey, you were on Bushibrow's team, right? Naruto asked. The name's Tintin. The weapons mistress proudly said. Mistress of weapons and slayer of fangirls. Before Naruto could ask what was happening, Kin spoke up. Tintin and I met during the exams. She was highly interested in the Church of Jashin, so she's going to be coming with us to Yamagakure. Kin then held out her hand to Naruto. If you still want to come, Naruto didn't even have to ask as he took Kin's hand. Lead the way, Kin-chan. Chapter 7. The Ritual of the Acolyte. Alright folks, here's the deal. With net cracking down on mature content, I'm forced to edit the hell out of this thing to keep it on here. As such, I have removed the lemon in this chapter. I will continue to update this story here on net, but the uncensored version will be over on net. At least it will be once I figure out how to work the submission system over there. You can also check out the uncensored version over at my DeviantArt page. My pen name for both DeviantArt and AFF are the same as the one here, Thegrim. Special thanks to people like Yuko Taishu for sending me his awesome list of jutsu. I'll be sure to use them in future chapters. Also, thanks to Dylan Millwood for his ideas as well. Keep them coming, folks. I'm always open for suggestion. Unknown location. Within a large cave with a giant statue that had 9 eyes, a figure made of dark energy appeared on one of the statue's fingers. Alright everyone, meeting time? The figure spoke in a distorted voice. Within moments, 8 other dark figures materialized on the remaining fingers. You summoned us, Pain-sama? One of the figures with Sharingan eyes asked. Indeed I did, Itachi. Pain replied before addressing the others. I've summoned you here to inform you that we are going to be accelerating our schedule and begin our hunt for the Jinchuriki of the tailed beasts. Really? So soon? One figure that looked more like a plant said in 2 different voices. If I may ask Pain-sama why? Another figure with green eyes and a mask asked. You need not concern yourselves with the reason. Pain replied. All you need to know is that several opportunities to capture some of the Jinchuriki have presented themselves and are too promising to pass up. This was met with some murmurs from some of the figures, while the rest simply remained silent. For example, the Chunin selection examination is being held in the village hidden in the leaves, and the Jinchuriki of the One-Tail and the Nine-Tail beasts are said to be taking part in them. Pain said, Really now? A figure with a sword strapped to his back said with interest. That sounds interesting, boss man. Another with a ponytail said, I've always wanted to show the leaf some of my art. Indeed. Pain said, Itachi, Kisame, with the Nine-Tails and the One-Tail in the same place, you will work alongside Sasori and Deidara and capture them both. The 4 of you should be more than enough to handle the both of them. As you wish, Pain-sama. Itachi said calmly while Kisame nodded. Yeah, this is gonna be a real blast. Right, Sasori, my man? Deidara said to his partner, a hunched-over figure. Yes. Sasori said in a mechanical-sounded voice. Plus, there are rumors that our old friend Orochimaru is planning something at the exams. I've been waiting a long time to properly demonstrate what happens to those who just up and leave the Akatsuki. What about the rest of us, Pain-sama? A figure with purple eyes and a tri-scythe asked. Haiden, you and Kakazu are to continue your current assignment and collect the bounties in the bingo book. Pain replied. If you come across any Jinchuriki or beasts, capture them, but maintaining the organization's finances is your top priority. Haiden groaned at this. Haiden, shut up. Kakazu growled at his partner before turning towards his leader. It shall be done, Pain-sama. Excellent. Pain said as he turned towards the plant-like figure. Zetsu, you know what you must do. Yes, Pain-sama. Zetsu replied with his 2 voices. You all have your assignments. Now get to them. Pain ordered as 7 of the figures vanished, leaving Pain with the lone remaining figure with blue eyes. It's finally beginning, my love. The figure said in a female voice. Yes, Conan. The world will soon know true pain. Pain said before he and Conan vanished as well, leaving the cave and dark and silent as a tomb. Hokage's office. We've looked everywhere, Lord Hokage. There's no sign of Naruto Uzumaki. A rabbit-masked ANBU explained. Saratobi rubbed the sides of his head, feeling a huge headache coming on. First, Naruto kills a group of villagers and goes missing, then a string of more murders in the middle of the night and the Chunin exams, in which the Fire Daimyo, the Wind Daimyo and loads of other dignitaries were attending, were just around the corner. First, Orochimaru openly threatens the village if we shut down the exam, and now all of this happens. Saratobi said before looking at the ANBU. Do we have any suspects in the murders of the girls? I'm afraid not, Lord Hokage. The ANBU replied. Saratobi sighed for what felt like the 100th time in the last hour. A murder investigation that was going nowhere, a missing Jinchuriki and Saratobi's former maniacal student, was on the loose. What else could happen? Yamagakure front gate. A few days later. Whoa. Naruto said when he first saw the imposing sight that was the village hidden in the darkness. Though Tenten didn't say anything, she had the same thoughts as Naruto. The buildings were much taller than those found in Konoha and looked far more intimidating. Neon-lit banners and signs were commonplace, as were the statues of various demons on the buildings. The most notable building had to be the tallest tower out of all of the village's buildings. The large plate on the side of the building had the kanji for darkness, telling Naruto and Tenten that this tower had to be where the village's Kage resided. At the top of the tower was a kind of soft red light that gave off an almost sinister glow. This brought Naruto to look at quite possibly the most bizarre sight in the village. Although it was still early in the afternoon, the sky was pitch dark as if it were the middle of the night. I guess this is why they call it the village hidden in the darkness, Naruto thought, thinking that it was the work of a very potent genjutsu or something. No place like home sweet home, Kin said as she, her team, Naruto and Tenten walked into the village. All right, I need to go make my report to the Yamakage. The rest of you are dismissed. Anaheim said as she started walking towards the tower. Shinku and Midoriko also went their own ways after giving their farewells, leaving Kin and the two former Konohanin. Come, I'll show you to the temple of Jashin where we can begin the ritual of the acolyte, Kin said. As Kin led Naruto and Tenten through Yamagakure streets, the former Leaf Genin were awed by how technologically advanced the village was compared to Konoha. They also took note that a fair number of shinobi and kunoichi also wore Jashinist pendants over their typical ninja clothing and were armed with either swords or tri-scythes similar to Kin's. Also, when the other Jashinists saw Kin, they stopped what they were doing and gave her a bow with their right hands over their hearts. Kin nodded her head to them in return. They also looked at Naruto and Tenten, but not in the malicious way the people of Konoha did, but rather they looked at the two newcomers with curiosity, or they gave a friendly nod. After walking for a while, they came to a tall torii with a metal Jashin insignia hanging from it. On either side of the archway was a pair of demon statues armed with tri-scythes. Just past the torii was a flight of stairs that led up a steep-looking hill. This way, Kin instructed as she started up the steps. Naruto and Tenten followed suit, both of them feeling slight unease at the macabre setting. The only source of light came from the stone lanterns on the sides of the steps. Once they reached the top of the stairs, Kin and the two former Konohanin were greeted by a hooded figure standing in front of an iron gate. It was too dark to see the figure's face or make out the gender. Not surprisingly, he or she wore a Jashin pendant and was armed with a tri-scythe. Welcome back, Kin-sama, the figure said in a soft male voice as he bowed to the high priestess. Kin returned the bow. Are my mother or grandmother around? Yes, Kin-sama. They are expecting you in front of the main temple, the guard replied before turning toward Naruto and Tenten. Are these two new converts? More than that, Kin said. Inform the others to prepare for the ritual of the acolyte. At once, Kin-sama, the guard said before performing some hand signs. The large, heavy-looking gate opened, allowing Naruto and Tenten to get their first glimpse of the temple of Jashin. Kin motioned for the two genin to follow. The temple grounds looked more or less like any other temple. Several large buildings, a couple of wells and other things. But with the eternal darkness of Yamagakure, the demonic statues and Jashinists armed with tri-scythes wandering around, the place had a distinctively sinister feel to it. Welcome home, my daughter. Naruto and Tenten ceased looking at the temple grounds to see a beautiful woman with long jet black hair and dressed in black and red Miko robes and a tri-scythe walking towards them. All in all, she looked like an older version of Kin. Kin hugged her mother. After breaking from Konsumi's embrace, Kin motioned for Naruto to come over. Mother, I give you Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. Naruto, this is my mother, Konsumi T. Like me, she too is a high priestess of Jashin-sama. Welcome, Naruto-kun, Konsumi said. We are honored by your presence. She then saw Tenten. And who is this? Tenten Xiaoyu, Konsumi-san. The brunette introduced herself with a bow. Tenten here has shown a great interest in our religion and wishes to join our ranks. She has already spilled the blood of several heathens back in Konoha and shows great potential. Kin explained. You certainly have an eye for spotting talent, Kin-chan, Konsumi said as she sized the weapons mistress up. Indeed, a new elderly voice said as an older woman with dark gray hair joined them. Oddly enough, she looked similar to Kin and Konsumi. You have brought great honor to us and Jashin-sama kin. Naruto, this is my grandmother, Kanaki Tsuchi. Kin said. She leads this branch of the followers of Jashin. We can all become acquainted later. Kanaki said. The preparations for the ritual of the acolyte are complete. Inside the main ritual chamber, Naruto and Tintin were flat on their backs on the polished wooden floor and naked. Underneath them were various and intricate-looking runes and symbols drawn onto the floor. Also, there were various symbols that were painted on their bodies as well. Okay, this is more than a little embarrassing, Naruto said as he tried not to look at Tintin's naked form beside him, but he managed to sneak a couple of glances at her. Please don't get an erection. The poor boy thought. You think? Tintin replied as she stole a few glances at Naruto when she thought he wasn't looking. Not bad, she thought. Kin happened to have noticed Tintin stealing some free looks at Naruto. The thought actually amused the young high priestess. I'm more than willing to share Tintin, as long as you remember that I'm always first in line. My friends. Kanaki spoke to the gathered Jashinists. We are gathered here not only to welcome 2 new converts to serve Jashin-sama, but to bear witness to the commencement of the prophecy. The very prophecy that will usher in the age of darkness and chaos, the age of Jashin. She then turned to a pair of hooded Jashinists. Bring forth the sacrifices. A moment later, the Jashinists returned with 2 people, bound and gagged. Judging from their clothing, they appeared to be prisoners. Kanaki then beckoned for Kin and Kansumi to approach. They both had their tri-sides in hand as they approached the 2 soon-to-be sacrificial lambs. This was another example of the working agreement between the followers of Jashin and the village hidden in the darkness. Between the need for target practice for the shinobi forces, human guinea pigs for Yamagakure's science department, and human sacrifices for the Jashinists, prisoners rarely enjoyed Yamagakure's hospitality for more than 6 months. Look at the bright side, heathens, Kansumi said as she raised her weapon. You're about to serve quite a purpose. With that, mother and daughter beheaded the 2 poor souls. Copious amounts of blood spilled on the floor. Kanaki started performing several intricate hand signs. Naruto and Tintin noticed that Kin, her mother, and the other Jashinists followed suit and began chanting. Jashin-sama, I beseech you, my lord. Naruto and Tintin looked around to see that many of the candles in the room were rapidly going out and that the flames from the torches by the altar were glowing brighter and gradually rising. A moment later, the flames rose up out of the torches and formed a giant fireball that started to change shape into a demonic face. As this was happening, the blood from the 2 prisoners seemed to flow upward off the ground and into the flames. Naruto gulped as what he assumed was the face of Jashin fully formed out of fire and blood. Tintin just looked on in awe. Inside her seal, Kushina also looked on with a look of awe and amazement. Even though the first time she saw him was when she was a newborn, Kin still remembered the sight of her master from the night she was born. It was a sight that refused to leave her memory, and she still couldn't help but feel awestruck in the presence of Jashin. So Kanaki, you have summoned me yet again. Jashin growled. I trust the reason behind you calling me here is acceptable? Yes, Jashin-sama, Kanaki said as she and the others bowed. I present to you Tintin Shiyu, a very promising new convert to our cause and more importantly, Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox. Ah, I see, Jashin said as he looked at the 2 former Konoha genin. Yes, they both possess great potential. Along with young Kin, I foresee great things. Naruto and Tintin looked at each other and nodded, as if having an unspoken agreement. We look forward to serving you, Jashin-sama, Naruto said without a hint of doubt in his voice. We shall spill blood and spread chaos in your name, Jashin-sama, Tintin added. And you shall indeed, Jashin said. I shall endow the both of you with some of my demonic power and unholy blessings. Prepare yourselves. With that, Jashin's flaming eyes changed from orange to purple and black. The symbols on Naruto and Tintin started to glow bright red as well. Okay, what's happening? Naruto never got to finish his train of thought as he felt some kind of power surging through his veins. Tintin felt the same thing. It was a slight burning sensation, but at the same time, the 2 genin could feel themselves becoming stronger as well. Naruto and Tintin started to levitate off the ground slightly and Jashin's face started to change into serpent-like dragons that swirled around the 2 new converts. A moment later, the flames died down and Jashin reformed above the altar. Naruto and Tintin gently landed on the floor, unconscious. It is done. They both now have a fraction of my power and are gifted with immortality and rapid regeneration. I gave the girl the ability to crystallize her blood. She can form weapons or armor with her blood by thinking about it. She will make a fearsome addition to our ranks, Jashin explained. As for the boy, he already has the power of a demon coursing through his veins, but I did weaken the seal of the fox. The rest is up to him. They are now my knights of darkness, warriors of chaos whom will slaughter my enemies in my name. Jashin's flaming visage then turned down towards Kin. As for you, young Kin, Kin immediately bowed lower to show her respect to her master. For your reward, I shall endow you with some of my power as well. Jashin's eyes glowed again, and Kin could feel her master's power entering her system. She could feel herself becoming more powerful. The feeling was almost orgasmic. I expect great things from you and our 2 new friends, Kin. Do not disappoint me, Jashin said. Yes, Jashin-sama, Kin said as Jashin's head vanished. A moment later, Kin lost consciousness. It's now official, mother. Kinsumi said as a hooded Jashinist gently picked Kin up off the ground. We can officially mark today as the beginning of the end. Yes, it is a proud day indeed. Kanaki said as a couple of hooded Jashinists picked up Naruto and Tintin off the floor as well. Kanaki and Kinsumi could see that the two former Konoha nin were starting to change, like they were aging a couple of years. Jashin-sama's power is changing their bodies. Over the next few hours, they will appear to be in their late teens and will remain like that for the rest of eternity. The reason behind this is that with slightly more mature bodies, Jashin-sama's power will settle within them more easily. I'm assuming the same will happen to Kin? Kinsumi said as she noticed that her daughter was starting to change slightly as well. Yes. Kanaki replied. Kinsumi said before turning to the Jashinists holding the unconscious ones. An amusing idea came to her mind. Take them to Kin's chambers and see that they are not disturbed, and leave some new clothes for them. I think they are about to outgrow their old ones. And for the love of Jashin, nothing orange for the boy, Kinsumi said, shuddering at the memory of that horrid outfit Naruto wore. With a nod of their heads, the Jashinists set off to their tasks. Elsewhere in the elemental nations, all of a sudden, Haiden felt a shiver go down his spine. What's wrong, Haiden? Kakazu asked as he stopped walking and turned to his current Akatsuki partner. The masked man from the waterfall village was carrying a dead man behind him. Nothing, Kakazu. It's nothing, Haiden replied. Just a chill, that's all. After looking at him for a moment, Kakazu decided that it was nothing, and the two Akatsuki members continued on their way to the closest collection office to cash in Kakazu's latest bounty. For once, the usually vocal Jashinist from the Hot Springs village was oddly quiet. The last time I felt a chill like that was about 13 years ago, when I heard that Jashin-sama endowed the daughter of a priestess with some of the same blessings as me. Something big is going down in the cult, no doubt about it. Whatever it is, I'll find out about it sooner or later, Haiden thought, thinking that perhaps he should have stayed with the cult instead of joining the Akatsuki. It was bound to be better than hunting down heathens with prices on their heads with someone as short-tempered as Kakazu. Chapter 8. In other news, while Kin, Naruto, and Tintin were getting used to their new bodies and abilities, the Chunin exam was about to commence back in Konoha. While the mood in the village was certainly festive, Sarutobi was feeling anything but as he sat in the observation booth overlooking the exam arena. Naruto was gone, and there was no trace of where he could have gone. But the aged Hokage had been presented with some new information that gave him an idea. First, there was the girl from Yamagakure, Kin Tsuchi, who supposedly killed herself and Sakura Haruno during the preliminaries. When the autopsy was being performed, the medical staff reported that Kin was actually a nurse hinged to look like her. Also, although the other two genin from Yamagakure, Shinku and Midoriko, had advanced to the finals, they were currently MIA, as was their Jonin sensei. Sarutobi learned that Kin and her sensei belonged to a religion that he had heard about in the past. Jashinism, the worship of a demonic god of darkness and chaos. In the past, Sarutobi merely dismissed them as a minority group of demon worshippers, but after looking up some information about them, the old man realized how much of a threat the Jashinists were. In addition to their macabre practices, some of them were armed with potent sorcery. Hell, a few of them managed to secure what Orochimaru had long sought after: immortality. This resulted in several deadly and highly disturbing jutsu, one of which was where a Jashinist with immortality would link themselves to their victim and then inflict a fatal wound on themselves and kill their victim. If that were the case, then Kin Tsuchi was still very much alive. On top of that, some of the proctors from the exam did report that Kin had made some contact with Naruto during the exam, meaning that she may have played a part in the blonde boy's disappearance. Another thing was that another Leaf genin, Tintin Xiaoyu from Might Guy's team, was reported missing as well, and she vanished just before the murders. At first, they didn't make sense, but now that Sarutobi had time to think about it. Guy had reported that Tintin was a very effective kunoichi and idolized one his Sarutobi's other former students, Tsunade Senju. But she did have some behavioral problems, particularly around other kunoichi. According to Guy's reports, Tintin was known for having severe anger management issues whenever she saw some of the fangirl kunoichi. The brunette saw them all as an insult to her profession. And all of the murder victims from earlier in the month were all teenage girls who were known for fawning over Sasuke Uchiha. Sarutobi also looked up some information on Yamagakure as well, but the info on hand was severely limited. All that he really knew was that it was located in the Land of Night, a place of eternal darkness. It was said that a powerful fallen sage cast a permanent jutsu on the land, resulting in everlasting night. To get more information, Sarutobi had to call upon his final former pupil, Jiraiya, the Toad Sage. The self-proclaimed super pervert was already looking into another nagging problem, the Akatsuki, but he agreed to look into Yamagakure and the Jashinists. The old man remembered the conversation they had. Hokage's office, a week ago. Sarutobi took one last drag out of his pipe as his former student walked into his office. The normally jovial and perverted man had a rare, serious look on his face. We may have a problem, old man. I've been hearing quite a lot of that lately. I'm assuming you've heard some of the rumblings going on around here? Sarutobi said as emptied his pipe. Some of it, Jiraiya replied. But as bad as the village has it, one inhabitant is about to have it far worse. The Jinchuriki hunt is officially on Sensei and the fourth legacy is in the crosshairs. The Akatsuki are coming for Naruto Uzumaki. I see. Sarutobi sighed. And with the Sans Jinchuriki here as well, then that means we can expect quite a lot of trouble. You seem to be taking this in stride, Sensei. The Kabuki-looking man said. The Uzumaki kid is about to be the center of some very unwanted attention. What have you heard about the recent events around here? Sarutobi asked. Our old friend Orochimaru is back to stir up some trouble. There were some murders and a couple of genin have gone AWOL. Jiraiya replied. That's all? Sarutobi asked. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed dangerously. Is there something you'd like to share with me, old man? Jiraiya said, knowing that he was not going to like the answer. What do you know about Jashinism? Sarutobi asked his pupil. The air in the room got tense. I know enough about Jashinists to know that whenever one of them shows up, trouble quickly follows. Jiraiya replied. In many ways, they make Orochimaru look like a saint. Why do you ask? Sarutobi sighed as he prepared himself for what was about to come. One of the genin that went missing was Naruto. During the Chunin exam, he was seen interacting with a Jashinist girl from the village hidden in the darkness. And you think that Naruto is with the Jashinists? Jiraiya finished with a frown on his face. Sarutobi nodded in the affirmative. Oh, this is not good. This is probably even worse than if the Akatsuki got a hold of him. You think the Jashinists plan to use the Ninetales like the Akatsuki would? Sarutobi said. No, Jiraiya said. The Akatsuki only care for the 9 beasts. Once they've been extracted from their hosts, the Jinchuriki mean nothing to them. The Jashinists, on the other hand, Sarutobi knew he was not going to like what he heard next. If what I've been hearing about how Naruto has been treated is true, the Jashinists are going to use all of those negative feelings to turn Naruto to their cause, and turn Naruto against the village. Sarutobi finished. Those that follow Jashinism are bloodthirsty maniacs who kill with little to no provocation. Jiraiya said in a grave voice. If Naruto were to embrace their ways, then we would have a very dire threat on our hand. One that would make Orochimaru and the Akatsuki look tame in comparison. After a long moment, the facts settled into Sarutobi's mind. Our information on Yamagakure and the Jashinists are severely lacking. I need you and your spies to gather information on them, as well as the Akatsuki. Jiraiya sighed as he pinched the bridge of his nose. That's going to be a tall order, old man, but I'll see what can be done. It'll take some precaution on my part. One of the things I've heard about Yamagakure is that they tend to attack first and don't even bother with the asking questions part when it comes to anyone or anything they consider a threat. I'll see if I can't get Naruto to come back as well, but you need to bear something in mind, old man. If he is truly gone and has sided with the Jashinists, you and the ones who have tried to help the boy need to be ready to fight him and kill him if necessary, because if what I've heard about Jashinists are true, they'll turn him into a killing machine. With that, the Toad Sage left, wishing he could go back in time and be there for his late student's son like he should have. Present. Dark days are coming. Sarutobi thought as he rubbed the side of his head. Greetings, Lord Hokage. Sarutobi looked to his left to see that the Kazekage had arrived along with 2 of his bodyguards. Welcome, Lord Kazekage. Sarutobi said as he shook hands with his Suna counterpart. Hopefully things go smoothly. Sarutobi thought to himself. Outside Konoha, an army of Odo and Suna shinobi waited patiently in the vast forest outside the Leaf Village. A group of summoners were gathered in a large circle, ready to summon the serpentine beast that Orochimaru gave them. All they waited for was the signal to begin. Everything was going to plan, until the sound of a small bell could be heard. The sound was so soft at first that only the Odonin with exceptional hearing caught it, but then it was loud enough that everyone heard it. What the hell is that? One of the Otonin wondered aloud. Well, this is quite the tailgate party you guys have here, yeah? A voice from somewhere in the forest said. Everyone turned towards the voice to see 4 figures walking towards them. They all wore black robes with red clouds and straw hats with a bell tied to each of them. Who the hell are you? A Suna Chunin demanded. Faye. Kids these days have no manners at all. The hunched-over one grumbled. I can't speak for my companions, but surely you whelps have at least heard of me? The hunched figure looked up so everyone could see his face under his hat. Some of the older Sunanin gasped in horror. You're Sasori. Sasori of the Red Sand. A Suna Jonin said in terror. Well, Sasori, my man. Looks like you're still popular among the older crowd, Deidara said as he took off his hat. But the younger ones don't seem to know you quite so well. Perhaps they need an education on just who they're dealing with. Kisame said as he took off his hat and drew Samahada. I could use a warm-up before the main event. Try not to draw attention. Itachi warned. Our priority is to capture the 2 Jinchuriki. Then we'll just have to make this quick. Sasori said as a large scorpion-like tail emerged from his back. Chunin exam arena. Back in the arena, Sasuke and Gaara were about to face off. Kakashi took the news of his late sensei's son going AWOL particularly hard, so he cut Sasuke's training short, something that the Uchiha heir was not very fond of. Once again, the dope manages to keep me from gaining more power. Sasuke mentally snarled as he got ready to face the redhead from the Sand Village. Just as Gunma was about to start the match, a huge explosion could be heard in the distance. What in the world was that? Sarutobi exclaimed. What are those idiots doing over there? Orochimaru thought underneath his Kazekage disguise. It's not yet time. Outside Konoha, a group of Leaf Shinobi and ANBU Black Ops rushed to the scene of the explosion. When they finally got there, all they saw were countless bodies of dead Suna and Odo Shinobi. Some looked like they had been impaled, some had horrendous gashes, while others looked like they died of fright. Of course, those were the ones that were still in one piece. There were plenty of dismembered limbs and miscellaneous gore spread all around as if the former owners were blown to pieces. Send word to Lord Hokage. We may have stumbled onto an invasion gone wrong, one of the Leaf Neen said. As this was happening, no one noticed the 4 Akatsuki members enter the village while no trouble at all. Back at the arena, an ANBU agent appeared beside Sarutobi and whispered into his ear. The old man then turned over to the Kazekage with narrowed eyes. It seems that my shinobi have come across an enemy encampment just outside the village. An encampment occupied by Odo and Suna shinobi, or rather what's left of them. They're all dead, Sarutobi said in a dangerous tone. Would you happen to know something about that, Lord Kazekage? The Kazekage simply stood up. I suppose it is true what they say, he said as he reached up to his face. You just can't find good help these days. He finished in a different, but familiar voice as the Kazekage tore his face off to reveal Orochimaru's face. On the outside, the snake Sannin was calm and collected, but on the inside, he was fuming. What happened? What the hell went wrong? Upon seeing Orochimaru, many Leaf Jonin and ANBU agents leapt into action. But the 2 bodyguards accompanying Orochimaru suddenly split into 4, the sound 4 to be exact. Orochimaru and his remaining minions rallied on the roof. Sarutobi, in his battle uniform, and his forces followed suit. As much as I would like to proceed with my plans, too many unforeseen events have occurred today. As such, Sarutobi-sensei, our tearful reunion will have to be postponed for now. The serpentine Orochimaru said. I think not, Orochimaru, Sarutobi said. With that, the Konoha forces moved to attack. When they finally attacked, Orochimaru and his minions vanished in puffs of smoke. The slimy bastard and his flunkies used the substitution to escape. Why am I not surprised? The Hokage said. Meanwhile, while all eyes were on the action between Sarutobi and Orochimaru, Gaara and his siblings took the opportunity to make their exit. Even they knew a hopeless battle when they saw one. Coward, come back and face me, Sasuke yelled after the retreating Tsunade. Temari simply used her fan as a diversion to provide cover for their escape, leaving the Uchiha heir in a cloud of dust. Just as Gaara and his siblings were about to leave the village, they were stopped by a group of Konoha shinobi. Gaara clutched his head in pain as he could feel the Shikaku inside him gaining control. Oh great, what else could go wrong? Kankuro said in annoyance. Apparently someone somewhere hears statements such as this, because the Kazekage's middle child got his answer when several white birds suddenly flew towards the Leaf Neen. Strangely enough, the birds splattered on impact when they hit the shinobi. They were made out of some kind of clay. Before anyone could comprehend what was happening, the clay suddenly exploded, sending body parts and viscera flying all over the place. What the hell? Temari yelled as she used her fan to block the body parts flying towards her and her brothers. What the hell just happened? Kankuro asked as he tried to get the ringing out of his ears. Now that's what I call making an entrance with a bang, yeah? Before anyone could say anything, a glass vial filled with a bluish-green liquid smashed on the ground in front of the siblings, spilling its contents all over the ground. A second later, a thick green smoke quickly engulfed the area. Immediately afterward, Gaara, Kankuro, and Temari fell to the ground, their bodies feeling numb and heavy. Some kind of paralysis poison, Kankuro thought as he tried to move, but to no avail. The smoke dissipated quickly as Sasori and Deidara walked over to the 3 paralyzed siblings. Well, Sasori, my man, it seems that our dear friend Orochimaru made a clean getaway, the former IWA Nin said to his hunched-over partner. Sasori? Kankuro thought in shock and horror. Sasori of the Red Sand? Yes. I was looking quite forward to making an example out of him, Sasori grumbled. But we can deal with him some other time, Deidara. We have what we came here for. Good point, Sasori, my man. A paralyzed Jinchuriki just ripe for the taking, Deidara said as he and Sasori approached Gaara. The paralysis poison that Sasori used was a highly potent one. It not only paralyzed Gaara, but it kept the Shikaku at bay. Let's take him and go, Sasori growled. The paralysis poison is highly effective, but it won't last forever. And I'm sure our young friend here will be in sour mood when it wears off. No arguments here, my man, Deidara said as he reached into his side pack for some clay. The blonde Akatsuki quickly created a small bird and placed it on the ground. After a couple of hand signs, the small bird grew to about the size of a building. Deidara picked up Gaara and placed him on the tail feathers of his creation, which wrapped around the red head. The 2 Akatsuki then hopped on top of the clay creature. What about Itachi and Kisame? Deidara asked his partner. We did our job, Deidara. That's all that matters, Sasori replied. Besides, I hate waiting. Good point, Sasori, my man, Deidara said as the clay bird took off and started to fly out of the village. Have a nice life, kiddos, Deidara said to Kankuro and Temari who could only watch as their little brother was taken from them. 0000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000å Faye. So much for cooperation. Kisame snorted. We may as well take our leave also, Kisame. Itachi said to the shark-like swordsman. It seems that our organization's information network is somewhat lacking. Our target isn't even in the village. Really? Kisame said, surprised. The layer of dust on everything indicates that he has been gone for some time now. The Uchiha said, meaning that remaining here any longer would be fruitless. Are you sure about that, Itachi-san? Kisame asked. As I recall, there's still one Uchiha left around here. Are you sure you don't want to tie up any loose ends? There's no need for Kisame. Itachi calmly replied. My little brother cannot defeat me, and he never will. Kisame decided not to press the issue. It didn't seem like it, but there were limits to his partner's patience. Very well then. Let us be off then. Certainly. Itachi said as the two Akatsuki took their leave, leaving the apartment as quiet and lonely as a tomb. Chapter 9. A New Goal. Tsunade. Naruto's Mindscape. 1 week later. You look so handsome. Kushina almost squealed at the sight of her son. Thank you, mother. Naruto grinned at her. Just hearing him acknowledge her as his mother brought tears to Kushina's eyes. She fully expected Naruto to be angry at her for keeping such a thing from him, and he was for a bit. But it quickly subsided as he told her that while she did lie to him for a while, she didn't hurt him nowhere near as much as the people of Konoha did. Hell, with her healing him from his injuries, she was in fact helping him when most others didn't give damn if he lived or died. Kushina looked her son over. Jashin's power had effectively transformed the 12-year-old boy into a 19-year-old young man. His formerly blonde hair was now dark red, as were his eyes. His whisker marks were also more defined, looking more feral than before. Gone was the hideous orange clothing. In its place, Naruto wore a black skin-tight shirt, black shinobi pants, combat boots, and a trench coat with ripped sleeves. Across his forehead was his new Yamagakure headband. Wrapped around his left arm was his old Konoha headband with a deep slash across it, and around his neck was his Jashinist pendant. Naruto also wore his primary weapons, a pair of gauntlets with razor-sharp claws for fingers. Think the Demon Brothers gauntlets. The gauntlets had been enhanced with demonic chakra. If Naruto slashed someone with the claws, the cuts they left would have some traces of demon chakra that would affect the nervous system of his victim, most notably the pain receptors. And it didn't stop there. Not only would the wounds be resistant to medical jutsu, they would be agitated by it. Plus, the demonic chakra would also slow the natural healing process, resulting in painful scars that never truly heal. Like what I did with the place? Naruto asked. Instead of a sewer with a giant cage, Naruto's mindscape now resembled a feudal castle with scrolls depicting demons on the walls. Where Kushina's cage used to be, there was now a demonic-looking throne with several pikes on the sides. A couple of them had skulls on them. I like it, Kushina said with a smile. Even when I was human, I always fancied the dark side. But I wouldn't mind being back in the real world, which is why I called you here. When Jashin gave you some of his power, the seal keeping me here was weakened substantially, although it is still strong enough to keep me here. It shouldn't be too much of a problem to break the seal now, Naruto said. True, but there's still one small problem, Kushina said. My soul merged with the spirit of the Kyuubi when I was sealed here. As a result, both mine and the Kyuubi's physical bodies were destroyed. Long story short, I need a new body to inhabit. Naruto thought for a moment before hammering his fist into his palm as if realizing something. I got it. I'll just make a shadow clone, have it cast the sexy jutsu on itself, and presto. Problem solved. I wish it were that simple, Naruto-kun, but there are several flaws with that plan, Kushina said as she sat down on her throne and beckoned her son over. Naruto walked over and stood beside his mother. 1. I need an actual physical body. A clone body will dissipate after a single hit. 2. I need a female body. Even if I use one of your clones and it uses a hinge to appear female, it will still be a male body. So? Naruto shrugged his shoulders. Kushina sighed at how slow her son could be on the uptake. If I inhabit a male body, it would cause some abnormalities. Like what? Naruto asked. Let me put it to you like this. You know what a transvestite is, right? Kushina replied. Yeah, it's a... Naruto stopped in mid-sentence as what his mother was telling him sunk in. Oh. The former blonde said in a low voice as a disturbing mental image formed in his mind. Kushina used 2 fingers to bop her son on the head. You do realize we're in your mind, right? I don't need to see something like that. Kushina snapped. Sorry, Naruto said. So, female body, right? Any preferences? Kushina smiled evilly at her son. I'm so glad you asked, because as it turns out, I know of the perfect vessel that would figuratively and literally be the perfect fit for me. Finding her will be a bit of a chore, but that never stopped you. Naruto mirrored his mother's smile. Her name? Tsunade Senju. Kushina replied. Temple of Jashin, Armory. Naruto exited his mindscape and re-entered his body. The dark redhead heard the sound of whetstone against metal as he opened his ruby-colored eyes. To his right, Kin was sharpening her tri-scythe with a small whetstone. She now wore what looked like a sleeveless black kimono with a red obi tied around her waist. The outfit was meant for ease of movement, as it did reveal a generous amount of Kin's skin, particularly her long legs. "So, how was your visit with your mother?" the raven-haired girl asked as she scooted next to her companion. "Very enlightening," Naruto replied. "Where's Tintin?" The sound of pain-filled screams could be heard outside. "Practicing," Kin replied as she leaned her tri-scythe against a wall. "She'll be out there for a while. More than enough time for us two," Kin said in a silky voice as she started to straddle Naruto. "Much as I'd love to, Kin, my mother has a mission for me, and I could use yours and Tintin's help," Naruto said as he reluctantly got up. Kin pouted as she followed Naruto out of the armory. "Besides which, the armory, Kin-chan? Really? It would be a first." Kin shrugged her shoulders. As soon as the two got outside, they saw Tintin standing about 20 yards away from 5 people tied to training posts. A couple of them were skewered by long red crystal shards. Another 2 looked like they were wrapped in razor chains, made out of the same red crystal. The lone remaining man was frantically waving his head back and forth. Any sound he made was muffled by the gag in his mouth. "Don't worry, it'll be over very soon," Tintin said maliciously. She wore a kimono similar to Kin's, only Tintin's had long sleeves on it, presumably to conceal her hands and weapons. Strapped to her back was a large scroll. In a sudden movement, Tintin swung her arms at her target. As she did so, a stream of red viscous liquid shot out of her sleeves towards the defenseless man. As the liquid flew, it quickly took the shape of several spiked chains and hooks. In the same instant, it hardened into a crystalline substance. The crystal chains wrapped themselves around the man, and the spikes and hooks sunk into his skin. The bound man let out several muffled screams. With an evil grin, Tintin pulled on the chains and the man was torn to pieces. As his body parts hit the ground, Tintin pulled her chains back to her. As she did, the chains liquefied and flowed back into her arms through several cuts on Tintin's forearms. As the last of the liquid seeped in, the cuts healed themselves. Needless to say, Tintin was adapting rather nicely into her new role as a knight of Jashin. "Here for practice?" Tintin said as she walked over to Kin and their shared companion. "Not really, Tin-chan. My mother's sending me on a little errand, more of a hunt actually. And I was wondering if you and Kin would like to join me?" Naruto said. "Will there be killing involved?" Tintin asked. "More than likely," Naruto replied. "Plus, you may like this, Tintin. I'm actually going to track down someone you happen to be a fan of." Tintin raised an eyebrow in legitimate curiosity. "Who?" "Tsunade of the Sannin," Naruto said. "You're serious?" Tintin said, eyes wide in surprise. "Yes," Naruto replied. "Mother needs a female body to inhabit before I can release her from the seal, and Tsunade will do perfectly." "Sweet," Tintin said. True, the brunette weapons mistress idolized Tsunade, but one thing she really wanted to do was test her skills against her. And this was the perfect opportunity. "So when do we leave?" Kin asked. "Now," Naruto answered. Hokage's office. Sarutobi sat in his office chair puffing his pipe. From the look on his face, the old man was in deep contemplation. Jiraiya, Koharu, and Hamura were also in the office. "Sarutobi, why must you be so glum?" Koharu asked her former teammate. "An attempted invasion was thwarted, and the Sand Village has unconditionally surrendered. Shouldn't things be more festive?" The old Hokage exhaled the smoke from his pipe in a sigh. "While that may be Koharu, it was sheer luck things occurred the way they did at the Chunin exam, and our village sustained little to no damage." Sarutobi then turned to face his former teammates and student. The situation and the outcome could have easily have been different. Looking back at the events over the past month, with the looming threats of Orochimaru and the Akatsuki, the abduction of the Kazekage's youngest son, and the sudden disappearance of Naruto, I have a feeling that we may not be as lucky as we were this time around. "What are you trying to say, Sarutobi?" Hamura asked, even though he had a general idea, as did Koharu and Jiraiya. According to Temari and Kankuro, the Kazekage's other children, their younger brother, and the Jinchuriki of the Shikaku, Gaara, was taken by 2 members of the Akatsuki organization. This combined with the fact that Naruto has gone missing means that both Konoha and Suna have lost their respective Jinchuriki, and it won't be very long before the other villages become aware of those facts. Neither Koharu nor Hamura would admit it, but Sarutobi had a point. Losing the demon brat dealt a severe blow to Konoha's strength, and it wasn't going to take villages like Iwa or Kumo long to detect the weaknesses that both Konoha and Suna now had. "I'm not getting any younger, my friends," Sarutobi said. "The next time Orochimaru or a possibly greater threat emerges, we may not be as fortunate as we were at the Chunin exam. That being said, we need someone to take the mantle of the 5th Hokage." After a few moments of silence as Sarutobi's last statement sunk in, Koharu and Hamura looked over at Jiraiya. "No way," Jiraiya simply said as the 2 advisors looked at him expectantly. "My place is out in the field. Besides, can you really imagine me running this place?" Before Koharu could object, she paled slightly as she did indeed envision what Konoha would be like with Jiraiya in charge. The hot springs would never be the same. "Perhaps you're right," the old woman grunted. Hamura just snapped his fingers in annoyance and pouted. He too envisioned what things would be like under Jiraiya, particularly the hot springs, and was looking forward to it. Koharu smacked the old man on the head at that. Plus, if I were always cooped up around here, I'd never get a chance to work on my books. Jiraiya added. A valid point. Hamura said a little too quickly. Koharu just glared at him. However, if you two want a Sannin to run this village that badly, you seem to forget that there is another one out there, and I'm not talking about Orochimaru. Jiraiya said. You mean? Koharu started. He does indeed. Sarutobi said. I see no other candidate to fulfill the role of the fifth Hokage than Otoge-cure. Tsunade? Kabuto blinked. He and Orochimaru were inside the Snake Sannin's throne room/lab. Yes, Kabuto. Orochimaru answered his right-hand man. Our invasion of the Leaf may not have gone anywhere near according to plan, but it has succeeded in one aspect. Sarutobi-sensei may have won that day, but he knows it was a mere fluke. As a result, now more than ever, the old fool is questioning his mortality. Even he is more than aware of the fact that the end is near, so he'll be looking for a successor. Kabuto said as the pieces came together in his head. Precisely. Orochimaru said with mirth in eyes. The fools in the council will try to have someone like that arrogant fool Danzo take over, or perhaps one of the clan heads. But Sarutobi-sensei will want someone he knows for a fact he can trust. He won't choose Jiraiya, because he knows that fool will turn the place into a train wreck within a week. That only leaves Tsunade. But you told me that she renounced Konoha. Kabuto stated. She did. Orochimaru said. Time doesn't heal as many wounds as one would think. A fact that may work in our favor. So what are we going to do with Lady Tsunade? Orochimaru-sama? Before the Sannin could answer, a slight pain spiked in Orochimaru's hand. Not very painful, but just enough for discomfort. Something that did not go unnoticed by Kabuto. As you are most likely aware, Kabuto, my boy, Tsunade is regarded as a foremost expert in the field of medical jutsu. As many advances that I've made with my experiments, it could pay off to have not one, but two medical geniuses in my employ. Kabuto liked the sound of that. Working alongside Tsunade was a personal dream of his since he was an academy student. It would be interesting to say the least. But then something came to the silver-haired young man's mind. With all due respect, Orochimaru-sama, how can you be so sure she'll cooperate? She may have no love for Konoha, but from what you've told me, she's not a very big fan of yours either. Orochimaru just smirked evilly. I'll simply make her an offer she can't refuse. I wanted to show Sarutobi-sensei a certain technique back at the Chunin exam, but I was unable to because we were so rudely interrupted. But I think Tsunade will enjoy it even more. And if she still refuses, we'll simply eliminate her to keep her from going back to the Leaf. Either way, problem solved. Shall I send our spies to get information on her whereabouts? Kabuto asked, although he already knew the answer. He was half right. Yes. However, when it comes time to leave, inform the Sound Four that they'll be joining us. Best to err on the side of caution, especially considering my old friends from the Akatsuki were the ones who ruined the invasion. Orochimaru said. Kabuto gulped at the mention of the organization. You think they may show up again? More than likely, they were at the Chunin exam because two Jinchuriki were there. Orochimaru explained before turning his gaze towards an amputated skeletal arm in a glass case on his desk. There was a ring on one of the fingers. But still, I have something they want. Should we have Kimimaro ready, just in case? Kabuto asked. No, I don't want to use him unless it's absolutely necessary. Orochimaru said. Send out the spies. Kabuto bowed and left. Akatsuki Sealing Chamber. Location unknown. Gaara of the desert was floating in a bubble of blue chakra with a stream of red chakra flowing out of his mouth and into the mouth of the nine-eyed statue inside one of the Akatsuki's many hideouts. Standing on 9 of the statue's 10 fingers were holographic images of the Akatsuki members. Each of them appeared to be concentrating. Pain, the leader of the organization, opened his bizarre-colored eyes and saw that the stream of red chakra was thinning. Almost finished, the Rinnegan user said. After a few more moments, the red chakra finally left Gaara and entered the mouth of the statue. After the chakra entered the statue, one of the 9 eyes fully opened and an iris formed in the center of it. As this was happening, the blue chakra that was holding Gaara in the air dissipated, sending the young red-headed boy falling towards the ground. He landed head first with a sickening snap, indicating that his neck was broken. Luckily for the Kazekage's youngest child, he was already dead before hitting the ground. 1 down, 8 to go. Pain said, about time. Haydn groaned. There has got to be a quicker way to seal these things. Although Haydn's complaining annoyed most of the other members of the Akatsuki, they did share the Jashinist feelings. Sealing the tailed beasts took 3 days and nights without a break. Sitting still for that long was something that no one looked forward to. Plus, meeting while projecting holographic images of themselves left their physical bodies vulnerable. Normally Kakazu would tell Haydn to shut up, but in this case, the masked man from the waterfall village was inclined to agree with his fellow immortal. When Pain called all of the members to assist with the sealing of the Shikaka Jinchuriki, Kakazu and Haydn were hot on the trail of a rogue shinobi who was worth around 25 million ryo, Kakazu's biggest bounty to date. With 3 days lost, the odds were good that the rogue ninja was either long gone or cashed in by another bounty hunter. Needless to say, the temperamental Kakazu was in a fouler mood than usual. Deciding not to get into a pissing match with Haydn, Pain addressed to rest of his group. Well done everyone. It was sheer luck that we managed to obtain the Shikaku when we did. No trouble at all, boss man, Deidara said while Sasori nodded. However, I find it surprising that 4 of you were at the Leaf Village, and yet, we only got 1 Jinchuriki. Pain said as he turned his Rinnegan gaze towards Itachi and Kisame. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki was already gone by the time of our arrival, Pain-sama. Itachi calmly explained. However, we managed to gain some information on where he went. Go on. Pain said. Before you recalled us, our spies informed Kisame and myself that the Naruto Uzumaki had departed Konoha at least a month before our arrival. No one caught him escaping, but during the Chunin selection exam, the boy was seen having several conversations with a team of genin from the village hidden in the darkness, particularly a young girl, Faye. So the little shit was talking with some girl from another village. So what? Haydn sneered, putting up a tough front. But on the inside, the Jashinist priest was getting anxious. The cult is pretty spread out across the elemental nations, but a good number of my master's followers are in Yamagakure. It could be a coincidence. Actually, Haydn, I think you will find this most interesting. Kisame told the former Hot Springs Nin. It turns out that this girl is part of your particular religion. What? Haydn snapped, his reddish eyes widening in total surprise. Kisame, are you absolutely sure? The Jashinist asked, his tone was dead serious. Yes. The Kiri swordsman replied with a smirk. Oh no. Haydn groaned, putting his left hand over his face. This isn't good. I knew that chill meant something. I assume there's a problem, Haydn. Pain said to the Akatsuki's newest member. Yeah, there is. Haydn replied. If your little world domination plan requires all of the tailed beasts, then I'm afraid we're shit out of luck. The Ninetales is officially out of our reach. There was some talking between the members as all eyes were on Haydn. Would you care to explain, Haydn? Conan asked. The Church of Jashin is a religion that is widespread throughout the elemental lands. Most of Jashin-sama's followers are nomadic, never staying in one place for very long. However, a considerable number of Jashinists are very well established in Yamagakure. It is often regarded as a safe haven for the practitioners of my religion. Haydn, what does this have to do with the Ninetales Jinchuriki? Pain asked. If Itachi and Kisame speak the truth, then the Jinchuriki is under Jashin-sama's protection. Haydn replied. If you still want the kid that badly, then I'm afraid you're gonna have one hell of a fight ahead. I have heard of Yamagakure's shinobi forces. Zetsu's pale half spoke up. Yeah, they're no pushovers. Add in a group of Jashinists, and you got one mean group of ninjas who tend to attack first and don't even bother with the questions. Zetsu's dark half added. Only a fool would willingly take on such odds. Kakazu said. Indeed. This is most problematic. Pain said, stroking his chin. After thinking on the next possible course of action for about a full minute, the Rinnegan user spoke. We'll worry about the Ninetales when we get to it. For now, we shall concentrate on the prep work to capture the other Jinchuriki. It will take us 3 years to prepare for the sealing of the other beasts. Itachi, Kisame, for now the both of you shall assist Kakazu and Haydn in hunting down rogue shinobi and collecting their bounties. As for the rest of you, your assignments are the same. We shall reconvene later. Hi, Pain-sama. The other Akatsuki members said before their images vanished along with the statue, leaving the corpse of Gaara of the desert to rot in the cave. Never thought I'd say this, but Haydn's right. There has to be a way to speed the sealing process up. Kisame said as he stood up and stretched. Orochimaru's departure has hindered the Akatsuki in more ways than one. Itachi said as he too stood up. Without him, or should I say, without his ring, the process will be continued to be a slow one. Kisame let out a growl. If that's the case, it would behoove Sasori to find Orochimaru before I do, because I can't guarantee that there will be much of him left. Actually, perhaps we should pay Orochimaru a visit. Itachi told his partner. Kisame looked at the rogue Uchiha with a confused look, at which Itachi continued. You heard Pain-sama. Since we cannot go looking for Naruto, we are to hunt rogue ninja and collect their bounties for the time being. And Orochimaru is a rogue with a sizable price on his head. Ah, I see where you're going, Itachi. Kisame's eyes lit up as he smiled his shark-like smile. We track down Orochimaru, and not only do we get a nice payday for the Akatsuki, but I get to vent my frustrations as well. Not a bad arrangement. Not only that, my friend, but we can also reobtain the void ring he took with him when he left. Once we have that, all Pain-sama has to do is find a new member to wear the ring. With 10 members in the Akatsuki once again, it will surely speed up the sealing process. Itachi said as he started to walk with Kisame in tow. We will be accomplishing 2 objectives at once. Heh. I hope Sasori won't be too disappointed when we get to Orochimaru before he does. The same can be said for Kakazu when we show him how the bounty hunter game is really played. Kisame laughed, looking forward to the new mission. Land of Shadows, near Yamagakure. So, where do we start looking for Tsunade? Kin asked as she walked beside Naruto on his left and Tintin on his right. Well, Lady Tsunade is known for many things, Tintin explained. But one thing that exceeds her reputation for her medical skills is her reputation for gambling. So we should start with the gambling hotbeds. That doesn't really narrow it down, Kin said. Wouldn't it be easier to send scouts out to get a fix on her, and then we swoop in? We could do that, Kin-chan. But then we wouldn't have the fun of finding Tsunade ourselves. Naruto said with a smirk. Kin was about to object when she realized what her lover was saying. And besides, this is a good opportunity to get the prophecy rolling. Naruto said, and we shall spread chaos throughout the land in the name of Jashin-sama. Kin recited the prophecy that was foretold on the day she was born. With that, the raven-haired girl started to laugh with Naruto and Tintin joining in. The sound of evil laughter could be heard for miles.